Chapter 1. Beijing opened his eyes suddenly, turned over and stood up. His slender fingers clenched the energy gun around his waist, and his beautiful brown eyes instantly became sharp, and he looked around alertly. He found himself in an abandoned area with low, shabby houses lined with dilapidated houses, and a large garbage dump with an odor not far away. Not aware of the danger, Beijing's heart relaxed slightly, raised his hand and touched his neck. There was no blood on his hand, and he didn't feel any pain. Huh? He was obviously bitten by a 5th-level zombie, and now he seems to still be able to feel the stench coming from his face, as well as the pain of being pierced through his neck by sharp teeth. Beijing closed his eyes, looked around again, and found that this place was not an environment he was familiar with. Although it was simple and dilapidated like a slum, there was no overwhelming zombies and a strong smell of blood. What's going on? A familiar feeling of hunger came from his stomach at the right time. Beijing quickly took out the only compressed biscuit in his pocket and tore the packaging bag with force. No matter where this place it is, the priority is to find food and water as soon as possible, and nothing is more important than staying alive. The windbreaker on his body has been stained with zombie-smelling liquid, and Beijing took off the windbreaker at will, revealing the faded light blue shirt inside. His straight legs were wrapped in black trousers, and he was wearing a pair of hiking shoes. He had a slender figure in perfect proportions. If it weren't for his sharp eyes and quick movements, he looked like a high school student. His face is very delicate, and the long brown-black broken hair hides the pair of bright brown eyes. But if you look closely, you can still see the straight bridge of the nose and the graceful outline below. It is a pity that the pointed jaw and thin and yellowed face have greatly reduced this beauty. In the last days, materials were scarce, and most people who have been malnourished for a long time are like this. Beijing quickly inspected the place for a week. There was obviously no food in this place, and even the smelly garbage dump was turned upside down. When he looked at the local residents who were turning over the garbage, those people looked at him vigilantly, lest they be robbed of the spoils. Beijing lowered his eyes. His slender eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings, and he was not familiar with the situation at first. About half an hour later, he saw a completely different scene from the slum, as if he had strayed into another world. Countless high-rise buildings rise from the ground, and huge holographic screens are embedded on the surface of the buildings, playing various new products that have never been seen before. The spiral-shaped tracks in the air are staggered and connected, and the exquisitely shaped suspension vehicles shuttle in the high air, as if they have entered outer space. Beijing's always indifferent eyes flashed a little shock, guessing that he may have come to a certain era in the future. There seems to be no zombies in this era, but he is still vigilant around him and does not dare to take it lightly. The clean and tidy road is very wide, with towering buildings standing on both sides, smooth and cold like a mirror. But there is not a trace of people on the road, not even supermarkets and convenience stores. Beijing raised his hand and touched his chapped lips. He needed to speed up. Finally, in front of a hemispherical luxury building about 3 stories high, he heard a long-lost voice. Beijing walked in without hesitation. This was the only place he could find someone after so long. The hall is full of people. The floor is bright. The dome is gorgeous like a European palace. The lights are dazzling. The circular seats from low to high are full of people. And there are many people in the front hall, standing all black. In the center of the hall are 2 incomparably huge holographic screens, which are presented in front of everyone in 360 degrees without blind spots. Each screen shows one person and several booths with stones, which seem to be competing. Beijing glanced at it, and then withdrew his gaze, the hunger in his stomach again, bringing with it the slightest colic. His face paled slightly. He walked quickly to the edge of the crowd and patted a man on the shoulder. "Excuse me, you know where to sell food?" "I'm ill. The bet will end in 10 minutes. I have to pay close attention to which pieces of wool to bet and get out of the way." The man glared at him fiercely and hurriedly turned around to continue the discussion with his friend against time. "No, 3 is good. It should be green." "No, 3 is really good, but I think no. 8 is doing better, and I'm betting it goes up." "Well, I think 5 is more likely." Beijing's eyes were slightly cold. He lowered his head and used his peripheral vision to quickly glance around, and found that there were well-equipped guards everywhere in the hall, and the hand on the energy gun was slowly lowered. This place is not as chaotic as in the last days, and the strength of the guards is not weak. He absolutely cannot retreat. "Little brother, have you encountered any difficulties?" Just when he was about to ask a few more people, a middle-aged man with a Chinese-shaped face and a simple and honest appearance came towards him. His voice was gentle and very friendly. "Well, do you know where to sell food?" Beijing secretly evaluated the opponent's strength, confirmed that there was no harm, and allowed the opponent to walk in front of him. Ouch, it costs a lot of stars to buy natural food now, and it's all ordered by the brain. It's impossible without the brain. The middle-aged man smiled very warmly. "Introduction, my name is Joe Gu. You can call me Big Brother Joe." It's troublesome to see that the little brother doesn't wear a light brain on his hands. When he saw the young man's clothes and his wrists were empty, he knew that the other party was a kind of person who came from a slum and was unwilling to the status quo. Haha, this kind of person is the easiest to be tempted. Bai Jing raised his eyes. "Excuse me, how do I get the light brain?" Zhou Ge was stunned by those beautiful brown eyes, and he was stunned for a moment before he said, "You can buy it at Gu's Gambling Stone shop here, but you need at least 3,000 star coins to buy light brains." Seeing the silence of the other party, Zhou Ge's eyes flashed a gleam of light, and he sighed. "Oh, I also came from a slum, and I know that it is difficult for people like us to get out of the slum, and I also accidentally entered the Gambling Stone world. It only got better after that, haha, now it's a small asset. Seeing that we are so lucky, it is better for the little brother to try stone betting. The newbies generally have good luck. If you win, the stars will be yours. If you lose, I will pay for this little money. How about that?" "How to bet?" Beijing frowned slightly. His originally clear voice seemed dry due to a lack of water. Zhou Ge laughed in his heart, and he really took the bait. "It's very simple. Did you see the two people on the high platform? They are both stone gamblers, and each of them will pick 5 pieces of wool to bet, a total of 10 pieces of wool, numbered 1 to 10. Which of these 10 pieces of wool do you think can produce jade? Just press the corresponding number. Each piece of wool has corresponding odds. If you are lucky enough to guess correctly, the principal will be tripled or quadrupled, or even a dozen times." Seeing that Beijing didn't answer, Zhou Gu continued to tempt. "The principle of 1,000 star coins. If you win, you can get more than 10,000 star coins. Little brother, you can choose with confidence. It doesn't matter if you lose. I'm Giovi's words. I'll pack the star coins for this round." Zhou Gu patted his chest and said sincerely, that honest face was particularly deceptive. Beijing probably understood that this kind of betting method was similar to betting a ball game, and the two people on the high platform were betting on stones. Before the apocalypse broke out, he heard about gambling stones when he traveled to Yunnan, but it was played by rich people, and 9 out of 10 bets were lost. He sneered in his heart. How could he be fooled by such a clumsy trick? But Beijing didn't leave immediately, because his ability was special, a perception ability, which could sense living creatures within 20 meters, including zombies. This ability is not an attack ability, and it may be tasteless in the eyes of others, but it has allowed him to escape countless attacks. If it hadn't been betrayed by his teammates, he would not have died at the hands of level 5 zombies. While Zhou Ge was talking just now, Beijing tried to use his senses to sense the no one wool above. The reason why he could perceive zombies in the last days is because the zombies have crystal nuclei in their heads, which are a kind of active substance, and maybe jade is the same. Perception circled around no one wool and quickly penetrated into the interior. After the induction, Beijing frowned and he didn't react at all. He sensed 2 more pieces in a row, both of which were the same dead energy. When detecting the 4th piece, I finally found that there is a small amount of active reaction in the lower part of the wool, which is not strong, equivalent to the activity of the crystal nucleus of the first-level zombie. How is it, little brother? The time is coming soon. Which one should you bet on? Zhou Ge watched Beijing staring at a few pieces of wool on the stage and laughed secretly in his heart. Even the most powerful instruments can't detect it. What can you, a novice, see? Look at this guy. He looks really good. And when he gambles a few more times and can't pay back, he will sign a lifetime agreement with him, enjoy it on the bed, and then sell it to the casino as a coolie. It's so worth it. No 4. Beijing put his hands in his pockets and said lightly. He sensed all 10 pieces of wool just now, only no 4 had a weak reaction, so he could give it a try. If it fails, a cold light flashes in Beijing's eyes, and when he has to, he will hijack the opponent. Such a close distance is enough to start before the guards can react. Okay. Zhou Ge suddenly felt a chill on the back of his neck for some reason, and couldn't help shivering. He took a deep breath, clicked on the light brain on his wrist, and operated a few times on the floating panel to let Beijing sign the electronic money. while he himself was on the best-performing no. 6 and no. 8 wool each bet 10,000 stars. Joe Good didn't explain it on purpose just now, just to create an illusion for the other party, so he could only choose one of the numbers 1 to 10. But who said that only one of these 10 pieces can produce jade? 2, 3, or even 1 is not possible. How can it be so easy to bet on the stone? You can only win if you go all in. The countdown is 1 minute. Customers who haven't made a bet, please do it as soon as possible. The host's sweet voice sounded, and many undecided guests pressed their teeth and pressed the numbers on their brains, praying for God's favor. Countdown, 10, 9, 8, 2, 1. It's time to bet. As the countdown of the numbers on the big screen ended, everyone closed their hands and waited for the odds to be revealed in 2 minutes. After they were free, several people standing beside found Joe Guy and Bai Jing standing next to him and couldn't help but pouted. Look, Joe Guy is lying to the newcomer again. He is obviously a profiteer, but he has a loyal and honest look. Yeah, this guy is really disgusting. He has been tempting newcomers to bet, and when the other party can't afford it, he will squeeze them to do coolies. Some people will never come out. Well, I guess this guy is also in the trap. It's a pity to look young. At the same time, in the most luxurious VIP box on the second floor, a tall man dressed in a tall and straight black military uniform with an 8th-level golden military badge on his shoulders was sitting lazily on the leather sofa watching the screen. His long legs in black military boots were slightly spread out, and he accidentally stretched under the tea table. He unbuttoned 3 buttons of his neat and rigorous military uniform, revealing a large chest and looming chest muscles. Temptation dries up the mouth. His facial features are very handsome, with sharp lines, sharp eyebrows, cold eyes in his starry eyes, a high-nosed bridge, and thin lips slightly pursed. Although he just sits there casually, no one can ignore his existence. A look at it is terrifying. Young Master Gu Joe Guy is too arrogant. You need to let your subordinates deal with it. No hurry. Gu Yuanqiu glanced at Bei Jing on the screen and sneered softly. Young man, if you want to dream, you have to pay a price, so let's take it as a small lesson for him. Chapter 2. 2 minutes later, a sweet-looking woman appeared on the big screen. It was the host Tan Shu. Her voice was like a yellow warbler coming out of the valley, with a gentle smile. Everyone has been waiting for a long time. All the bets on the spot and on StarNet have been counted. Let's take a look at the final odds, respectively. With the sound, the wool material no. 1 to 10 is displayed on the big screen in a timely manner, and there are corresponding odds below. Among them, no 3, no 6, and no 8 of the most bets and the lowest odds, which are 4.2, 3.6, and 3.9 respectively, and most of the others are between 7-12. By Jingtu's no 4 wool material is not favored by others, and the odds are 9.5, which means, based on the principle of 1,000 star coins he invested, if he bets, he will eventually get 9,500 star coins. Joe Guy smiled and looked at the odds on the big screen, convinced of his own vision. This time, he looked very carefully. The no 3 wool material performed well, but there were a few hidden fissures at the back, which were difficult to find without careful observation. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of big cracks and small locks. The jade structure inside is easily damaged by fine locks. Therefore, the green ones must be no 6 and no 8. Joe Guy was very proud. Although the odds of these 2 pieces of wool were not high, if they guessed correctly, the odds would double. He invested 20,000 principal, and at least he could get 150,000, not a small amount. Apart from money, stone gambling is all about the heartbeat and the satisfaction of betting on the treasure, which cannot be brought by any other entertainment activities. He glanced at no 4 again. The performance of this piece of wool was really average. It seems that this beautiful boy is going to belong to him. At the same time, the 2 stone gamblers on the high platform began to prepare to dissolve the stone. In an auction like this, there are more than 10 stone betting games every day, and everyone in the audience and Sing Wang's customers are waiting with great excitement. Naturally, time cannot be wasted. These wools were selected by them in the past few days. In order to get results as soon as possible, they have long been optimistic about the trend of wools, and now they can immediately dissolve the stones. 10 experienced call-side masters walked to the 10 pieces of wool on the display stand respectively, and according to the instructions of the 2 stone gamblers combined with the performance of the wool, they quickly cut along the dark lines displayed. Sound shields and guards are automatically activated to prevent excessive noise and gravel from disturbing the viewing customers. With the help of an automatic stone cutter, in less than 2 minutes, all 10 pieces of wool were cut deep or shallow. Everyone stared at the big screen, breathing nervously. Some of these wool materials have been cut by a third, and some have just broken open the skin, revealing a finger-wide cut surface. The stone gambler sprinkled some water, so that everyone can see it more clearly. Hey, 6 of the 10 stones are all white stones, and there is a high probability that these stones will be useless. It collapsed at the first blow, asterisk 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 it, and lost money again. Don't panic, don't panic. This is just the beginning, just wait. The crowd in the audience suddenly became a mess. Some were scolding, laughing, frustrated, and looking forward to it, showing all kinds of life. Joe couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. His honest face was red with excitement, and the numbers 6 and 8 he had chosen were both green. Bai Jing looked up at the movements of the master calcite on the big screen. He looked very calm, but his thin fingers lightly pressed his temples. Perhaps because he was too hungry, he felt an unspeakable dizziness, and his body became extremely tired. Fortunately, the experience in the end times gave him extraordinary perseverance, which should be enough to support the end of this game. Look, it's soaring. I only saw that Master Shai sprinkled some water on the hole rubbed by the No 6 wool material, and a light green came out. It was shiny and translucent, and the color was pure. Looking at the waterhead is very good. At least it can reach the glutinous seed, soaring. Ms. Lin Shuang is worthy of being a leader among the second-level stone gamblers. She's amazing. Haha, I bought No 6 for 50,000 star coins. This time I will definitely make a profit. Joe couldn't hold back the smile at the corner of his mouth. He said that his vision was right, that the previous bet was just bad luck. He looked at the dejected people around him. His vanity was greatly satisfied. He couldn't help but patted Bai Jing's shoulder, but he was not annoyed after being avoided by the latter, and said with a smile, "Little brother, it seems that your luck is average. It doesn't matter. There is still a chance next time." Bai Jing avoided his hand sideways without giving him a look. Anger and contempt flashed in Zhao Gu's eyes. Just wait, you will cry when you don't pay." Seeing the rise, a smile appeared on the lips of the stone gambler Lin Shuang, and he stepped forward to discuss with Master Qi Shai, focusing on this piece of wool. The stone cutter was replaced with a grinding wheel. After fine grinding, more than half of the wool was quickly removed. The smile on the corner of Lin Shuang's mouth became stronger and stronger. She splashed the water impatiently and lit it inside with a strong light. How could it be? The one exclaimed from the high platform. The large screen zoomed in on the cut surface of the wool material in time, and I saw that under the illumination of the light, the green jadeite was covered with large and small black spots, densely packed, almost extending to the incision. It's ringworm, so much. It's over, it's over, it's over. This black ringworm has completely penetrated into the jade, and there is no drama. I lost again. Today's luck is really bad. There are many people optimistic about No 6 wool, and this time there are many laments. Zhao Gu's ecstatic expression froze just now. His face was so gloomy that it dripped with water, and the words he just said were like a huge irony, which made his honest face distorted. How can there be ringworm? Shit, that's really bad luck. At the same time, other wool materials are almost solved. The favored No 3 wool material is full of broken jade. No 8 is green on the skin, and No 6 jade meat is eaten by black ringworm. Among the 10 pieces of wool, the one who solved the emerald turned out to be No 4, impossible? How could it be No 4? Zhao Gu looked at the wool unwrap on the big screen and cried out in disbelief. No 4 has a gray-white skin and rough skin, which is completely inconspicuous. How can it be possible to produce jade? But the fact couldn't bear him not to believe it, and on the huge screen, a piece of oily green jadeite that was a circle bigger than an adult's fist appeared in front of everyone. Its color is a slightly dull green. The surface has a grease-like delicate luster. The color is warm and even. It is indeed a big rise. Most people were shocked and accepted the result. Bet on stone, bet on stone. Isn't the bet on the uncertainty of jade and wool? As the saying goes, immortals can't break an inch of jade. Even the top stone gamblers in the empire can't accurately judge whether there is jade in the wool, whether it is rising or falling, let alone these amateurs. At the end of the game, the sweet-looking host appeared on the screen again and said with a smile, "The result of this stone betting has come out, and the winner is the second-level stone gambling master, Miss Chang Yun." The dazzling spotlight shone on the beautiful woman on the high platform at the same time. Her flowery smile was reflected on the big screen. The fans under the stage were scrambling to call Shang Yun's name, and there were even many live broadcast surrounding her. Shang Yun, Shang Yun, Shang Yun. In the cheers of the fans, and under the amazed eyes of everyone, Shang Yun bowed deeply to everyone with tears in her eyes. This is her most glorious moment as a stone gambler, and it is also the most glorious moment. Lin Xuan, who was also a stone gambler, had already left the stage with a cold expression. As the loser, the carnival here did not belong to her. But next time, she will definitely win. After Shang Yun left the stage, the host's sweet voice sounded. Congratulations to the customers who have successfully made a bet. The star coins will be automatically settled to the Guangnao account within 5 minutes. Next, the auction of this green jadeite will be held. He, little brother, is lucky. Zhou Ge looked at Bai Jing with a stiff smile. His face no longer had the genial expression he had before. Instead, he looked rather hideous. The result this time was like a loud slap slapped hard in the face, making him very embarrassed. Damn, he actually lost to a newcomer. What kind of asterisk did this boy have? Bai Jing ignored it and closed his eyes in discomfort. The pain in his stomach made him clench his fists, his fingertips turning white. If I understand correctly, the odds of 9.5 means that he earned 9,500 star coins. After removing the 1,000 star coins given to this man, there are 8,500 star coins left, which should be enough to buy brains and food. But he doesn't have the light brain account that the host said. I don't know how to solve it. Hopefully soon. Well, Bai Jing bit his lip and groaned, cold sweat dripping from his forehead, and his stomach spasmed due to excessive hunger, as if a knife was twisted inside, and the pain was unbearable. At this moment, a woman with a work card hurried towards him. I'm Wang Xin, a staff member of Gu's Stone Gambling Shop, number 001635. Is Bai Jing your name? Look, is the bet slip yours? Wang Xin called out Guangnao, and an electronic bet sheet of 1,000 star coins was displayed out of thin air. Bai Jing's name was signed in the lower right corner, which was the star coins that Zhou Ge lent him. Yes, Bai Jing's voice was so weak that it was barely noticeable. He clutched his cramping stomach, and his eyes went black, and he could barely see the screen in front of him. Wang Xin breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that all the star coins had been distributed to the corresponding account. Only this white scene could not find anyone. Goose definitely does not allow mistakes in settlement, even if it is a star coin. The supervisor quickly called out the monitoring and asked several robots to step up their search, and finally found the person who did not have an account. Are you all right? Wang Xin asked worriedly, looking at the pale face of the other party. I need food. Yes. After Wang Xin heard it, he immediately took out 2 primary nutrient solutions from the small space button. These staff members are specialized in dealing with disputes and emergencies, and they are prepared for everything. Thank you. Bai Jing almost grabbed the 2 nutrient solutions, opened the mouth of the 2, and poured them into his mouth together. The tasteless liquid flowed into the body, gradually relieving the stomach cramps. Bai Jing felt that he was alive. Although he was only 5% full, he finally got rid of his hunger. How are you? Are you full? Wang Xin looked at his slowly recovering face and said happily, 1 primary nutrient solution is enough to satiate one's stomach. 2 should be a little supportive. Don't drink so much next time. Yeah. Bai Jing lowered his eyes, his long eyelashes trembling gently like a small fan. He did not explain that he was only 5% full after taking 2 primary nutrient solutions. His body may be slightly different from the aborigines in this world, so he must not expose it. Star coins are usually credited to the Guangnao account. Do I need to buy the Guangnao? Looking at the plain and faded clothes of the other party, Wang Xin showed a little sympathy in his eyes. This person should be from a slum, and he didn't have star coins to buy Guangnao before. Need. Bai Jing understands that in this high-tech future world, it is impossible to do anything without a brain. Follow me. Wang Xin led him into the guest room on the 1st floor and took out a pure white wristband. This is an ordinary light brain, priced at 3,000 star coins. In fact, there is a deluxe version, priced at 10,000 stars, but she didn't take it out, lest it hurt the self-esteem of the teenager. Okay. Seeing Bai Jing's agreement, Wang Xin quickly tapped on the light brain a few times and handed it to the other party after activation. When he got the optical brain, a beam of white light emitted from it, scanning him thoroughly like an X-ray. But Bai Jing was completely unprepared and had no time to dodge. Seeing that Bai Jing's face was not good, Wang Xin explained with a smile. Don't worry. This is Guangnao automatically analyzing your level data. From now on, Guangnou will be bound to you. And when the data is uploaded to the Imperial Gene Bank, there will be your unique identification. Bai Jing pursed his lips. He is not an aboriginal here, in case the physical data is different. Before he could think of a countermeasure, he heard a D, and the light brain automatically popped up a translucent interface above. ID 1,053,166,247. Name Bai Jing. Sex male. Age 18. Status citizen of the Galactic Empire. Gene class D class. Physical fitness level B level. Mental strength level A level. Skill name none. Warning: the owner's body has been in a subhealth state for a long time. Please supplement nutrition as soon as possible. Bai Jing breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. It seems that the data is not abnormal. Wang Xin. The 9,500 star coins are deducted from the 3,000 for the purchase of Guangnou, and the remaining 6,500 star coins have been credited to your account. Please check. Bai Jing. How much is the nutrient solution just now? Ah? Wang Xin was stunned for a moment, then waved her hand quickly after reacting, no need. Gu Shi will reimburse the stars and coins for dealing with emergencies. She just did what she should do. 100 star coins for a bottle of primary nutrient solution. Bai Jing has quickly opened the optical brain to inquire, and the price of the primary nutrient solution is displayed on the pop-up interface. His learning speed is simply amazing. Thank you just now. Bai Jing looked at Wang Xin with a very sincere tone. If it wasn't for the help of the other party, he might not be able to hold it anymore. He quickly found the other party's account through Guangnou and directly transferred 500 star coins to express his gratitude. Then he transferred 1,000 star coins to the middle-aged man named Zhou Gui. You never like to owe favors. Wang Xin's face turned slightly red when the young man looked at her. Those brown eyes seemed to contain a clear spring, so beautiful that it was suffocating, and even made her heart thump. I go first. Bai Jing nodded to Wang Xin, glanced at the 5,000 star coins displayed on his account, and turned away. He wants to find a place to live as soon as possible and get to know the world well. Chapter 3. On the holographic screen, the host is auctioning the 5.8 kilograms of oily green jaded offered by Shang Yun, and the bidding below is one after another. I will give out 200,000 star coins, 250,000 star coins, 260,000 star coins, 280,000 star coins. Host Tan Shu. The current bid is up to 300,000 star coins. Does anyone want to increase the price? Wonderful Eyes looked around for a week and saw that no one continued to bid. He smiled and said, 300,000 once, 300,000 twice, 300,000, the deedle. Congratulations to this gentleman for the price of 300,000 star coins. This oily green jadeite. Bai Jing glanced at the screen and walked out of this gorgeous spherical building. He used his brain to book a room in advance, left the bustling crowd, walked through the towering buildings on both sides of the road, and walked into a remote path. The location here is not good, but the price is cheap, only 300 stars a night. Opening the door, the room is very modern, with a simple combination of black, white, and gray, and intelligent home appliances. Since he entered the room, he has automatically adjusted the lights, music, and even the bathtub with hot water. The housework robot put the brand new slippers at the door. After Bai Jing put them on, he immediately went to the bathroom to take a hot bath. The warm water penetrated every pore of his body, and Bai Jing let out a comfortable moan, soaking his whole body in the bathtub. He hasn't bathed for a week. Water resources are extremely precious in the apocalypse. Even if he is splashed by the stinking liquid of zombies, he can only simply scrub it. Bai Jing soaked for a whole hour and didn't get up until his skin was completely moisturized and put on the prepared gray bathrobe. The dirty clothes were cleaned by the housework robot. He wiped his brown-black hair casually and lay on the bed and started fiddling with his brain. As soon as the light brain was opened, a novice guide popped up on the interface. Because it was in a hurry before, Bai Jing had not yet had time to check it, and now there is plenty of time, just in time to understand the system. An hour later, Bai Jing had a basic understanding of the operation of the optical brain, and of course information about this era. He was a little surprised that this era was actually related to the end times he was in before. Zombies broke out in 2050. After hundreds of years of struggle, human beings finally eliminated the zombies and won the final victory, but also suffered huge losses. The earth is polluted by viruses and devastated. In order to survive, human beings have concentrated all their efforts on the development of science and technology, and finally found a habitable planet in the Milky Way. Using wormholes and space-jumping technology, all the remaining 100,000 people on the Earth were immigrated to the capital star. On this basis, gradually colonize hundreds of surrounding planets. It is a pity that after immigration, it was found that these planets have all the substances needed for life, except for the lack of energy. After difficult exploration, the researchers of the Empire found that there are a large number of rough stones irradiated by cosmic rays on the capital star and surrounding planets, and the emeralds contained in them can be used to provide energy. Robots, mechas, aircraft, hover vehicles. Almost all the energy sources on the planet, and even the advanced gene fluid used to resist cosmic radiation, must be extracted from high-quality emeralds, so gambling stones has become another important field in addition to mechas. The current era is 835 years of the ephemeris. After hundreds of years of development, stone gambling has formed a relatively complete system and scale, and it has given birth to the profession of stone gambling master. Due to cosmic radiation, the parts of all rough stones close to the husk are covered with a mist-like film that cannot be detected by any high-tech means. The probability that the rough stone contains jadeite is extremely low. Only a high-level stone gambler with rich experience and spiritual power can increase the probability of gambling increase several times and successfully produce high-quality jadeite. Therefore, stone gamblers are particularly respected in the Empire, and the requirements for becoming stone gamblers are extremely strict. White power may be suitable for stone gambling. Bai Jing thought that he had used his perception to detect the activity inside the wool, and if there was activity, it meant there was jade, and the final result showed that he was right. I didn't expect that the powers that were despised in the last days could also come in handy. He laughed self-deprecatingly, then felt a familiar hunger in his stomach. Probably because of genetic differences, even if Bai Jing drank 2 primary nutrient solutions, he could only reach 5 points of fullness. In this case, to achieve fullness, at least 1,000 stars are needed every day. Bai Jing looked at the 4,700 star coins in the account, and his handsome eyebrows frowned. If these star coins were bought for nutrient solution, they would only last for 4 or 5 days. He turned on his brain and entered the Xinguang shopping mall to see if there was any other food. Natural radiation-free potatoes cost 200 coins per pound, beef 300 coins per pound, and rice 500 coins per bag, Bai Jing said softly, his beautiful eyes fixed on the fat and thin beef without blinking. He couldn't help feeling it through his gloves. It was very elastic. Bai Jingqiu's Adam's apple rolled. He hadn't eaten meat for several months. The last time I ate meat was in the wild. The team finally found a hare that was not polluted by zombies. Everyone scrambled to eat it. He can still taste the deliciousness of roasted rabbit meat to this day. After calculating the star coins, Bai Jing did not hesitate to order 3 potatoes, a pound of beef, a bag of rice, and various condiments, which cost a total of 1,500 star coins. Instead of drinking unflavored nutrient solution, eat these delicious natural foods to satisfy your appetite. The courier was delivered to the door in less than 10 minutes, which was unbelievably fast. There is a complete kitchen and kitchenware in the room, and Bai Jing wears an apron and cooks rice and porridge. Wash and blanch the beef, cut the potatoes into half pieces, and plan to make a potato beef. After a while, the fragrance of rice filled the whole room. In order to adapt to the long-term hunger, Bai Jing planned to drink porridge first. There is a thin layer of rice oil floating on the rice porridge in the bowl. The soup is clear and bright, and you can see the soft and glutinous rice grains inside. Perhaps it was because he had not eaten normal food for a long time, and Bai Jing felt that this was the best food he had eaten in the past 19 years. The small bowl of rice porridge was quickly consumed, and the warm rice porridge passed through the esophagus, bringing a comfortable warmth to the stomach. At the same time, the potato beef was also stewed. The orange-yellow potatoes were overcooked, and the large pieces of beef were brightly colored and wrapped in the soup. With the rich soup, Bai Jing ate half a pot of beef and 2 large bowls of rice, but he didn't dare to eat more because of his stomach. At night, lying on the big soft bed, Bai Jing closed his eyes contentedly. If this was a dream, he hoped he would never wake up. A good night's sleep. Bai Jing woke up from the soft bed. His eyes instantly became vigilant. He sat up suddenly, and habitually touched the energy gun beside the bed. When he saw the housework robot standing by the bed and the white bedding under him, he realized that he was no longer in the end times. It doesn't look like a dream. Beijing lifted the quilt and prepared to take a shower. The housework robot followed him step by step, squeezed toothpaste in advance, and put on soothing music intimately. Cool drops of water splashed on his face, and he looked at the person in the mirror. The brown-black, slightly curly hair has grown longer due to infrequent care, covering the smooth forehead and the pair of exceptionally beautiful brown eyes. Because of sleep, there was a strand of dull hair on the top of his hair, which made the boy's cold face look a little cute. His face was thin, with a pointy chin, and his long-term malnutrition had left him slightly yellowish, but it did not damage his delicate features. Beijing stared at it for a few seconds, picked up scissors and cut his hair a bit shorter, revealing those beautiful brown eyes that were shimmering with mist, which made people's minds shake, and could not help but indulge in it. He frowned and ordered a pair of thick-framed, old-fashioned glasses with his brain. It was the cheapest style, only 50-star coins. After washing up, the glasses arrived. After wearing it, he looked at it in the mirror. The thick lenses covered the mist in his eyes and the watery light in his eyes. The original surprise became ordinary and even a little rustic. Beijing was very satisfied. He never liked to be paid too much attention, which often meant trouble. After heating up the leftover potatoes, beef and rice from yesterday, Beijing sat beside the bed and searched with his brain, intending to find a job. Otherwise, with the star coins in his current account, even if he is frugal, it will not last long. In fact, what he likes most is metro-related positions. Thinking of what he saw on Starnet yesterday, there are holographic images of the real-life version of Mobile Suit Gundam more than 10 meters high. The smooth curves, the appearance of metallic luster. Tall, ferocious is every boy's dream. If he can drive a mecha, even level 5 zombies can be easily eliminated. Beijing took a few more glances and closed the interface with restraint. Whether it's his D-level genetic level or the price of a mecha that costs millions or even tens of millions of star coins, it's not something he can imagine now. The slender fingers slid quickly on the interface. Energy engineers, mecha manufacturers, mecha repairers, gene fluid developers, senior jade appraisers. Those who can meet his daily food expenditure of thousands of stars are these positions that require professional skills and professional certificates. Other basic positions are either too poorly paid or have been replaced by intelligent robots. It seems that gambling on stones is the best choice at present. Beijing put away his light brain. Chapter 4. Speaking of stone gambling, Beijing had never participated in it before, and he did not have any knowledge related to stone gambling in his mind. From the current point of view, his ability can indeed perceive jade, but he only tried it once yesterday. I still have to try more. Beijing stood up, put on a clean shirt and black trousers, and walked out of the room. He plans to go to Goo's stone gambling shop to try a few more times. It is best to find out the law of ability perception of jade, and then decide whether to take the stone gambling route. The hall that covers an extremely large area is still full of people, and the seats are full. Beijing can understand this feeling. Although he can bet on Xingwang, just like watching a football game, there is nothing more exciting than watching it live. He approached the crowd and looked at two huge screens in the air. An advertisement for Goo's nutrient solution was playing on the big screen. Beijing glanced at it. The nutrient solution he drank yesterday was of this brand. He couldn't help but think of the introduction about the Gu family that he found when he was searching for information yesterday. As the largest chaebol in the empire, the Gu family has almost monopolized nearly 30% of the jade business in the entire empire. And there are many Gu family in other industries. But Gu did more than that. The traditional stone gambling is to go to the casino to select the rough stone and calcite, and judge the ups and downs according to the jade. The probability of losing 10 bets and 9 betting stones and being bullish is extremely low, but many people still enjoy it. There are indeed many people who participate in traditional stone gambling, but they are far from common. On this basis, the Gu family pioneered the method of stone betting, turning stone gambling into a national carnival. From now on, anyone can bet on Star Online, support their favorite stone gamblers, and enjoy the thrill and excitement of stone gambling. As the owner of the Gu family, no matter who wins, he can make a lot of money, and he can quickly sell the rough stones, make good gambling masters, and at the same time make the name of the Gu family. Beijing did a silent calculation. Every day the Gu family has 10 stone betting battles. Suppose each person bets 1,000 star coins and the number of people on the scene is 1,000. Even if you don't count the betting part of the star network, there will be at least 10 million in turnover every day. It is worthy of being the first chaebol of the empire. That is, he can do business. Of course, for the sake of fairness, the two stone gamblers participating in the stone gambling battle must be of equal strength, and the level can differ by at most one level. The selected wool is also in the same grade, and the price is almost the same. Opponents in each stone game will be randomly matched to avoid cheating. The current time should be the halftime session just after a stone betting battle. There is a 3-minute countdown in the upper right corner of the screen. Bai Jing habitually looked around from the corner of his eye, eliminating the danger in advance, and inadvertently saw what the middle-aged man named Zhou Ge was saying to a beautiful young man. When the stone gambling battle was about to start, the young man gritted his teeth, as if he had finally made up his mind, and the end of his eyes were excitedly dyed bright red. And then the light brains of both of them flashed at the same time. Bai Jing retracted his eyes, and the brown eyes under the lens showed a hint of coldness. This Zhou Ge is deceiving the newcomer again. If the young man loses the bet, he will end up miserably. At the end of the countdown, the sweet-looking host appeared in front of the screen. Hello everyone, I'm the host Han Shu, and now the second stone game will start today. Standing on my left hand is the second-level stone gambler Shai Hang. At the age of 18, he reached the second-level stone gambler at a young age. The betting rate is 14.25%. Welcome. The camera showed Shai Hang, a handsome young man with neat short hair and an arrogant look. There were 5 stones on the stand beside him, which were the wool he had chosen. The next candidate to play against Shai Hang is Miss Lena, who is in my right hand. She is 23 years old and is also a second-level stone gambler. The gambling increase rate is 12.75%. Applause. Lena is a quiet woman with a slender stature, who smiles at everyone when the camera cuts to her. The host, let's first look at the wool material selected by the stone gambler Shai Hang. He chose the wool material that is priced at 30,000 star coins in the D area. Let's take a closer look. On the left half of the screen, the appearance of 5 pieces of wool is enlarged, and a holographic mode is presented in 360 degrees without dead ends, and the audience on the Star Network can also touch it. Bai Jing looked at it carefully and saw that the surface of some wool was yellow-brown, some black and some gray, and the size was also from the size of 2 fists to more than half a meter high, which was very different. One of the surfaces had an irregular ring of green, and there was something like moss on the underside. He stretched out his hand and touched it, and the virtual technology perfectly restored the touch of wool, but in Bai Jing's eyes, it was a dirty stone. Let's continue to look at the wool material selected by Miss Lena. It is also the wool material at the price of 30,000 stars in the D-level area. Please observe carefully. Following the host's introduction, another 5 pieces of wool material were displayed on the right half of the screen, numbered 6 to 10. The next time is the time to select the wool bet, and the time is 50 minutes. Overall, the time is not long, only 5 minutes per piece of wool on average. The people around are carefully observing the surface and texture of the wool, touching the surface from time to time to feel the touch, or illuminating it with a strong light, which looks very professional. Listening to their discussion, Beijing also began to sense wool with his abilities. He put his perception into the piece of wool with yellow sandskin and lumpy pine blossoms on the surface. As soon as the perceptive power penetrates into the wool material, the activity is felt. However, this activity is only a thin layer, and it is obviously impossible to produce jadeite. This should be what people often say depends on the skin green. Bai Jing watched 4 or 5 pieces one after another, but there was no activity. It was not until the 7th piece that he finally had a little reaction, but it was worse than the oily green seed yesterday. The last 3 are dead and nothing. Bai Jing sighed inwardly. Betting on stones is really a loss of 9 bets out of 10. Even a stone gambler would have a hard time making jadeite. It was still early, and he walked quietly to Zhou Ge and the boy, observing them from the corner of his eye. Zhou Ge studied these wool materials repeatedly, and finally gritted his teeth and spent 10,000 star coins to vote number 1. In his opinion, the wool of this piece of yellow sandskin is more blockable, and Shai Hang became a second-level stone gambler at a young age, and the betting rate is also higher. He trusts the judgment of the other party. The beautiful young man next to him glanced at Zhou Ge with a nervous expression, and also bet 5,000 star coins on no one wool material. In fact, he only has a savings of 1,000 star coins, and the other 4,000 is borrowed from a middle-aged man. But as long as he makes the right bet, he will not have to worry about the tuition fees this semester, and he can even buy a lot of metro parts. Come learn. Bai Jing saw the expressions of the 2 in his eyes, and deliberately coughed a few times, attracting the eyes of the 2. Zhou Ge looked at him a few times, and his eyes flashed. Oh, isn't this the newcomer from yesterday? He remembered clearly that this kid won the first bet, and it was scary luck. I don't know which one he bet this time. As a frequent visitor in casinos, Zhou Ge believes in luck. As the old saying goes, it is hard for a fairy to break an inch of jade. Even gods can't judge, so don't you have to rely on luck. He smiled and approached Bai Jing and greeted warmly. Little brother, do you still remember me? I lent you 1,000 star coins to bet yesterday. Bai Jing gave him a cold look and ignored it. Joe Good didn't get a response from the other party, and he was embarrassed, but he secretly hated. One day he will press this beautiful young man under his body and make him cry and beg for mercy. The sound of a 1-minute countdown came, and the white spot opened his brain and planned to bet. Joe Gui stood not far from Bai Jing, quietly stood on tiptoe, stretched his neck and looked at Guangnao. Bai Jing hooked his lips, and also raised his wrist slightly to let him see. Number 7. Joe Gui secretly wrote down the number, but he wanted to see how lucky this young man was. The host Liang Qi appeared on the holographic screen again. Everyone has been waiting for a long time. The results of the bet have come out. Let's take a look at the final odds, which are. The corresponding odds of no. 1 to 10 wool are displayed on the big screen in a timely manner. No. 1 is 4.8 and no. 7 is 10.6. Perhaps because of Shai Hang's fame, the odds of no, 1 to 5 are almost all lower than the odds of 6 to 10. 10 experienced stone masters immediately stepped forward, communicated with the 2 stone gamblers, and prepared to cut the first knife according to the performance of the wool. Shai Hang was also more optimistic about the no. 1 yellow sandskin wool. He walked to the first calcite master and personally guided calcite. If the bet goes up this time, he will be 1 step closer to the third-level stone gambler. Soon, the first knife cut off an inch along the edge of the pine flower. It's green, it's green. Everyone exclaimed, only to see that on the left half of the screen, the cut of no 1 wool material revealed a 2-finger-wide yang green, and the color was very positive. Shai Hang's proud brows and eyes were dyed with joy, carefully observing the trend of green, and asked the calcic master to put on a grinding wheel to wipe the stone. As the opening got bigger and bigger, the green color gradually revealed it was about the size of an adult's palm. Jioqi's eyes were fixed on Shai Hang's movements. He was very optimistic about this piece of wool, and the color of the skylight he opened was also correct. As long as he made another knife, the big increase would be solid. But before he could smile, he heard a burst of sighs. Oh, green didn't eat it. It's a pity, what a beautiful Yang Lu. It's skin green, it's broken. I saw the next 2 cuts from the bottom, and the exposed cuts were all white stones, and the green was only a layer on the surface. When it collapsed, Shai Hang pursed his lips tightly and placed the cut stone on the ground, and his betting rate would drop again. TMD, how can it collapse like this? Jobi's eyes were red, and he cursed in anger. In the past 2 days, his luck is really bad. He has lost hundreds of thousands of star coins one after another. Even if he has a small wealth, he can't help tossing like this. The young man standing next to him trembled when he saw the result. He didn't dare to fall to his knees on the ground. His hands clasped his head and his hair tightly, and he covered his face and wept. It's over, it's over, it's over. Not only did he lose his savings, but he was also instigated by middle-aged people to owe debts, and his tuition fees were not secured. What should he do? The young man could not wait to slap himself a few times and wake up the dreaming self just now. Jiao Gai was in a bad mood after losing the gamble. He grabbed the boy's hair by the crowd's cover and grinned in his ear. I'll give you 2 choices. One is to go to the stone casino and work as a coolie for 5 years. It is to let Lao Tzu work hard a few times. Which one do you choose? Hey, woo-woo, I choose to be dried. The scalp of the teenager is hurt. He also wants to go to school. Can only choose this kind of humiliation. Bai Jing lowered his eyes, covering the surging murderous intent in his eyes, this kind of scum. The wool materials on the stage were solved one by one, and finally the No. 7 wool material was solved with a dry green jadeite, weighing 9.8 kilograms. Although it was a low-end jadeite, it was not small, and was eventually taken away with 100,000 star coins, announcing the end of this stone gambling battle. Bai Jing bet 3,000 star coins on No. 7, and at odds of 10.6, he earned nearly 30,000 star coins at one time. Number 7. When Zhou Gui heard the number of jadeite's wool, he suddenly looked at Bai Jing, and he saw that the number 7 was entered by the teenager on his brain at that time. It was like someone who had been in a drought for a long time suddenly encountered Gan Lin, and the gold digger finally found the gold coin. Zhou Gui's bloodshot eyes lit up in an instant, exuding a morbid frenzy. The luck of this young man is simply against the sky. As long as you bet with him, you will definitely win it back. Stone gambling is like this: the harder you lose, the more you want to win. In normal times, Zhou Gai, who specializes in deceiving people, would never be so impulsive. But at this time, he was hit by successive failures, and his unwillingness reached the extreme. Soon, the third round of betting is about to begin. Bai Jing looked at Zhou Gai, who kept changing angles beside him. For fear of missing any of his movements, sneered in his heart, and the fish took the bait. He had already won the bet once, and if he won again, it would be easy to attract attention and even be banned by the Gu family. So he will deliberately lose in this game, just to punish this scum. It can be said to kill two birds with one stone. Bai Jing pretended to be researching wool, but in fact he focused on listening to other people's discussions, and vaguely learned that no, 2 and no, 8 seemed to be doing well. He penetrated deep into the no to wool material, and the moment he penetrated the leather shell, a strong sense of dizziness hit him, making him almost unsteady, and a fine cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Beijing grabbed the wall next to him with his left hand to prevent himself from falling, and put his right hand on his forehead and gently kneaded it, and it took a while to calm down. This was also the case yesterday. At that time, I thought it was caused by hunger. Now it seems that the use of powers has reached its limit. Bai Jing had this feeling once, and it was caused by continuously investigating zombies for 10 hours in a difficult mission. The super-frequency and highly cohesive state overwhelmed his perception, causing a dizziness in front of him. However, he later controlled the frequency of use and strengthened the accuracy of his perception, and there has been no overdraft since then. It seems that it takes a lot of energy to sense the jade in the wool. At present, his ability can only sense 10 pieces of wool at most. Starting from the 11th piece, it will be overdrawn. Fortunately, the No-2 wool skin is very active, and as soon as he enters it, he can feel the abundant vitality. He guessed that there is definitely jade inside, and it is very likely to be high-quality jade. Bai Jing thought about it for a while, clicked on his brain, and bet 1,000 star coins on the 3rd and 8th respectively. The stone bet must be all right in order to win, and as long as he doesn't bet on number 2, it means he loses. Zhou Gai glanced at Beijing's choice from his brain and couldn't help but raise his head to observe the 2 pieces of wool again. No, 8 was originally his more optimistic, and the more he looked at it, the more he felt that it was easy to get jade from this wool, although no, 3 performed in general, but the black and black sand leather shell was more gambling, but it was possible. He has been losing for the past 2 days, and this kid is unlucky. Why don't you just follow him to bet more and earn back what you lost before? Jiaogu's heart was beating extremely fast, and he seemed to see a large amount of star coins flying towards him after he won the bet. At that time, everyone will look at him with envious eyes, and he will be ashamed. Whoosh! Jiaogu's breathing suddenly became heavy, staring at the light brain interface with red eyes, and pressing down on the no, 3 and no, 8 buttons.
Chapter 5. Zhao Gui directly invested 50,000 star coins on number 3 and number 8 wool material. If the odds were higher this time, he could earn millions of star coins. Ha ha ha, what was the loss of hundreds of thousands before? As long as he can win this game, he can double it tenfold. The host started to announce the final odds. The gross odds for number 2, 3 and 8 were 3.1, 11.2 and 4.0 respectively. Zhao Gui almost laughed out loud. The odds of number 3 and number 8 combined are 15 times more than 1,000,000 stars. The stone gamblers in this battle are all third-level stone gamblers, and there are many supporters and supporters. From the statistics of the odds, one can hear one after another shouting from the audience. Miss Li Yu, come on. Miss Li Yu will be able to open jade today. Young Master C is the most handsome, and Young Master C is the strongest. Sikhin will win. Bai Jing frowned slightly, but he didn't expect Stone Gambler to have a large number of fans, just like the stars. Before the apocalypse broke out, and it's not surprising to see the expressions of the people around you, it can be seen that it is normal. What he didn't know was that with the popularity of stone betting and stone betting, the exposure rate of stone gamblers on Xinguang has exceeded that of most star actors and live broadcasters, and there are several top stone gamblers in the star domain. The number of fans is even as high as hundreds of millions. You must know that the total population of the entire empire is only more than 1 billion, which is simply the top of the top. The fans of the 2 stone gamblers shouted frantically as if they were fighting each other, their voices almost breaking the ceiling, causing Bai Jing to close his eyes uncomfortably. In the apocalypse, once there is a sound, there will be a siege of zombies. No one dares to shout outside. Everyone moves cautiously, and even their breathing will slow down, and he has long been used to such an environment. Fortunately, the solution of the stone started immediately, and the 2 stone gamblers put their fingers to their lips to signal, and the enthusiastic fans immediately quieted down. Li Yu wore a bright red off-the-shoulder dress, which was cut to fit perfectly and outlined perfect lines. The brown-red hair is pulled up high, the headdress is decorated with fine diamonds, and the red lips are like fire and radiant. Before she came to the number 2 wool material that was most likely to produce jadeite, she had a serious discussion with the calcite master. Instead of cutting the stone with an automatic stone cutter, she chose to rub the stone along the direction of the pine flower and the python belt. Soon, an opening about the size of a baby's palm was wiped from the leather shell, which was about an inch thick, revealing a layer of whitish mist-like crystals. It's fog, it's white fog. The fog was wiped out from the beginning, as expected of a third-level stone gambler, too strong. I'll bet that gao shui can definitely be found in this piece of wool. Ha ha ha. It seems that my vision is good. This time I'm going to make a profit. Fog is a layer of material between the skin and jade meat in the jade wool. The wool that can emit fog means the foundation is clean, and it is very likely to produce jade with good water, especially white fog. So many people will bet on fog specifically. Zhao Gui's wide eyes stared at the foggy cutout on the big screen, shouting in his heart, "There can't be any emeralds in it." Yes, the appearance of fog does not necessarily mean that jadeite can be unraveled. Maybe the inside is damaged by cracks or eaten by ringworm. In short, there should be no jadeite. He glanced at Bai Jing subconsciously, and the other party stood aside calmly, unaffected by the surrounding noise. Zhao Gui's restless heart relaxed a little and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. That's right, there are also many jadeites out of the fog that have been gambled. While the number 2 wool material wiped out the white fog, other wool materials also opened windows one after another. Si Chun saw the apple green exposed at the cut of number 8 wool. His thin lips evoked a smile, coupled with his handsome face, causing a commotion among the fans below. Oh my god, I'm dead. Si Chun is so handsome. Look at me, Master Si. I bet you 100,000 stars. The color is very positive. Si Shao is great. Li Yu and Si Chin's eyes met in the air, and they parted at a touch, then lowered their heads and continued to dissolve the stone. The two are both third-level stone gamblers and have outstanding appearance. They are very popular on Xinguang and have the same number of fans, so they have always regarded each other as rivals. This stone gambling battle not only represents the stone gambling ability of the two, but also their reputation and glory. Li Yu personally picked up the grinding wheel and rubbed the number 2 wool. She has had hundreds of stone gambling experiences and is very familiar with wool, and she slowly wiped away along the direction of the fog. Sichin also discussed with the gambling stone master and planned to solve the number 8 wool by himself. He dropped another knife next to the incision, perfectly cutting out the outline of the edge. Such a precise operation looks like a seasoned veteran. Li Yu's movements were careful but not slow, and soon, most of number 2 jadeite was freed. She drenched it on the water, and the gleaming green was translucent, as crystal clear as ice crystals. The color was uniform, the watercolor was pure, and it was exceptionally beautiful under the illumination of the light. Oh my god, it's actually the second highest ice species after the glass species. Luo eats it in. This jadeite won't be small. This is simply a big rise dash. Everyone present was excited. This kind of high-quality jadeite is rare. Even those who often gamble on stones have not seen it a few times. Moreover, this piece of wool material performed outstandingly, and many people bet on it. At this time, seeing the wool material soaring, the sense of achievement of betting on the right treasure suddenly spewed out, and the fiery atmosphere ignited the entire hall. Li Yu herself was so excited that her hands were shaking. Hundreds of stone bets were made. This was the first time she had solved such a fine jadeite. She took a deep breath and carefully wiped away the wool by operating the grinding wheel, and finally released about 4 kilograms of light green high ice jadeite. But Sichin's luck was not so good. After a few cuts, the bottom half of the wool material was all cotton wool, and only the egg-sized apple green waxy jadeite was cut out. Compared with the ice jadeite, it is much inferior. Oh, the water and color are good. It's a pity for such a large area of white cotton. Never mind, this one has gone up too. Is it the number 2 and number 8 that draw jade? Ha ha ha, I finally got it right once. Young Master Si is fine. We will fight again next time. Si Chen's fans couldn't bear the sadness of their idols and shouted loudly, Young Master Si, we will always support you. Li Yu, Li Yu, Li Yu. Li Yu's fans were even more ecstatic, shouting her name desperately, and many people were hoarse. However, in the fiery atmosphere, there was a person who was out of tune with the people around him, standing in a daze, with a terrifying expression on his face. This person is naturally Jiao Gue with a broken dream. How could this be? Isn't this kid the best luck? How could this be? The result has been decided. Both the number 2 and number 8 wolves have jadeite, and Li Yu's number 2 wool wins by an absolute advantage. After the host asked the 2 stone gamblers' wishes as usual, they began to auction 2 jadeites on the spot. The first was the ice jadeite that Li Yu opened. As you can see, this jadeite is a relatively rare high ice species, weighing 4.25 kilograms, and can extract 8 to 9 pieces of advanced gene fluid. If it is used on a mecha, it can provide 3 years of high-level mecha under normal conditions. Energy, let's start the auction dash. I will give out 3 million star coins. 3.5 million. 4 million star coins. I'll give 5 million. The jadeite of the high ice species is very rare. In the end, this jadeite was sold for 6 million star coins. Bai Jing suppressed the shock in his heart. The 50,000 star coins wool material was worth 6 million jadeite, and the price increased by more than 100 times. No wonder everyone wanted to become a stone gambler. While amazed, he suddenly realized that there was a sight on the second floor that could not be ignored, and he looked back suddenly, but only saw darkness. In the innermost luxury VIP box on the second floor, young Master Gu. This person's perception is very sharp, the young man in black uniform exclaimed. Yeah. Gu Yuanchao crossed his slender hands, supported his graceful chin, and looked at the boy with black-rimmed glasses on the screen. His betting odds are also very high. The young Qiaoan quickly got the analysis data. Indeed, he won twice in a row, but failed the third time. Well, maybe it's better luck. Maybe. Gu Yuanchao was non-committal, but his intuition told him that the youth must rely on more than luck. Huh. Qiaonan carefully looked at Bai Jing's enlarged face on the screen. It turned out to be him, the newcomer that Jiao Gue lied to yesterday. That's right. The corners of Gu Yuanchao's lips curled slightly, and his handsome face was like a poppy. This time Jiao Gue has kicked the iron plate. Young Master Gu, do you want me to deal with it? Qiaoan said with a serious look. Although he was out of temper, he was very efficient in doing business. Otherwise, Gu Yuanchao would not have sent him to be the head of the entire stone gambling shop. Gu Shi's gambling behavior is to guarantee profits, and he will never allow anyone who disturbs the odds to appear. If this young man has always maintained such a high winning rate, he can only warn him. And that Jiao Gue, hold on. Gu Yuanchao said in a lazy tone. Jiao Gue has lost so many times in a row, and he will soon lose his temper. Joan, remember, if you want to punish a person, you must seize his faults in full view, so that he can no longer stand up. When he said these words, Gu Yuanchao didn't even look at Jiao Gue. Those dark eyes kept staring at the boy on the screen, and he never moved away for a long time. Joan, yes. Standing in the crowd, Bai Jing lowered his eyes, covered half of his face with thick-rimmed glasses, and planned to leave under the cover of the crowd. His perception was several times sharper than that of ordinary people, and when he looked at it with that line of sight just now, he even felt a danger that was stronger than that of a 5th-level zombie, and he was extremely vigilant. Just to be on the safe side, don't come here again. Jiao Gue, who had recovered from the huge blow, was so angry that his face turned blue. His honest appearance became distorted, and his face was as ferocious as a ghost, scaring the people around him to retreat. He turned his head and glared at Bai Jing, who was about to leave. His eyes were bloodshot like spider webs. It was this slum who paid him 100,000 stars. If it weren't for him, he would have won the bet, and it was all his fault. Jiao Gui's fat body slammed towards Bai Jing. He wanted to smash the face of this bastard, spit blood out of this bastard's mouth, and look for teeth all over the floor. Bai Jing didn't even give him a look. When the opponent rushed over, Wei Wei turned sideways to dodge the attack that seemed to him to have little power. His slender left hand accurately found the opponent's neck and clasped it and slammed it on the ground. The heavy sound of dong dash made his scalp numb, and Jiao Gue was hit with black eyes. The severe dizziness on his head made him feel sick, but he was caught by that iron pincer-like hand and couldn't move. The air in his lungs is getting less and less. Jiao Gui's eyes bulge like a fish devoid of water. His limbs are struggling desperately, but he can't get rid of the other's slender fingers. A zombie must have its head separated from its body to die completely, so in addition to shooting the head with an energy gun, Bai Jing's most common move is throat lock. Under long-term training, he can even crush the neck bones of zombies with his bare hands. This time, he only used 10% of his strength to deal with Jiao Guwei. The opponent was too weak, and the opponent was really suffocated to death. Bai Jing quickly let go of his hand. Jiao Guwei was lying on the ground in embarrassment and coughing out almost his entire internal organs. His flushed face was sobbing and his whole body was twitching. How could he be the same as when he lied to a newcomer before? What made him even more desperate was that when he finally caught his breath, a pair of shiny black leather shoes appeared in his field of vision. Looking up, the Chief Joan appeared in front of him with a group of tall men in uniforms. Chowan put his hands around his chest and glanced at him condescendingly. The words spit out from his thin lips made him fall into an ice cave. Jiao Guwei, you have been deceiving newcomers for a long time, and you just ignored the rules of Gu's stone gambling shop and did it yourself. Starting today, young Master Gu has decided to ban all your rights in the Gu family, including the right to bet at the Gu family gambling shop, the right to mine the mining area of the Gu family, the right to sell the products of the Gu family, etc. 23 rights. Jiao Giru was struck by lightning, shaking like chaff. Regardless of the pain on his body, he crawled over crying and grabbed Qiaowen's trousers. Mr. Qiao, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I want to see young Master Gu. I am willing to give out all my wealth. Just ask young Master Gu to open up, please. Qiaowen raised his foot. His black leather shoes stomped on Jiao Gaizisheng's face and looked at him like a piece of trash. Young Master Gu can see trash like you too? Go back and dream. Saying that, he kicked him over, waved someone to throw Jiao Guwei, who was paralyzed on the ground like a dead dog, and left with a group of people. When passing by Bai Jing, Joan glanced at him inexplicably and quickly disappeared in front of everyone. Chapter 6. After Joan and the others left, the silent hall seemed to explode, and everyone was talking frantically. Young Master Gu? Is that the young Master Gu I've heard of? He actually came to Proxima Centauri? Oh my god. Is that the 3S level gene rank, young Master Gu who became a major general of the Empire at the age of 24? Of course, otherwise, who else can be worthy of the title of young Master Gu? Gu Shao, as the eldest son of the first Chable, is simply too perfect. I really don't know who is worthy of. Young men and women in the entire empire want to marry young Master Gu, but he doesn't lie to anyone. Didn't the Gu family want to marry the Du family? Du Jingya, the second daughter of the Du family, is very talented, and she is a 5th-level stone gambler when she just turned 20. This is unique in the entire empire. Yeah, the other person lowered his voice, but young Master Gu disagrees, and he promised the family that he will marry someone he likes and who is worthy of him. Hey, that's impossible, right? Besides a talented stone gambler like Miss Du, who else can be worthy of young Master Gu? Isn't it? Bai Jing's keen 5 senses heard the communication of the person next to him, but his focus was on the genetic level. The genetic level of this young master is 3S. He called up his attribute panel, and the gene level on it was only D. Gene level refers to a person's potential, and the higher the level, the stronger the potential. For example, the currently high-profile Imperial Sergeant must be recruited with a genetic level of B or above, and a genetic level of A can only be used to drive advanced mechas. The reason why people in the slums have no way out is because the genetic level is very low. In the era of such advanced technology, there is no use at all, and they can only rely on Imperial relief. Gu Shao, Gu Yuanchao. Bai Jing searched with his brain and silently kept the name in his heart. In the apocalypse, strength is everything. Everyone longs for a strong man, and Bai Jing is no exception. He hopes to one day fight against this 3S strong man named Gu Yuanchao. It's here. Outside the door, a woman in a royal blue dress shouted first. Young Master Gu, I'm your fan. Young Master Gu, I love you. Young Master Gu. Bai Jing was about to leave when he saw thousands of young men and women crowded into the gambling stone shop at the entrance of the hall. Bai Jing was stunned for a rare moment. He had never seen such a terrifying scene before. Young men and women dressed in all kinds of gorgeous clothes swarmed up, each with a morbid excitement on their faces, hoarsely shouting the name of young Master Gu, pushing hard like crazy. Their hair was messy and embarrassed. Some even had their clothes torn. Compared with such a huge crowd, the fans of the two stone gamblers just now are nothing at all. Gu's uniformed staff were tall and grim-faced, and wore various advanced equipment around their waists. They were well trained around each other and showed no pity, but within a few minutes, the fanatical fans were kicked out of the stone gambling shop and the isolation device was activated. The hall soon returned to normal, and the stone betting battle continued. Bai Jing quickly left the gambling stone shop and turned to a remote road after 20 minutes. This is his newly rented long-term rental room, 3,000 stars a month, which is much cheaper than the daily payment. When he was halfway, Bai Jing's body froze. The sense of crisis that he had cultivated for a long time in the last days made him roll quickly to the left, only to hear the sound of bang bang. And there were two white smokes left at his position just now. Bullet holes. The monitoring devices on both sides of the road have been destroyed, and the sound shielding device is also running, and no one will pass by on this remote path. Zhao Gui's face was full of blue and purple, and he looked very embarrassed. He roared fiercely at the two tall men in black next to him. It's this bastard. Kill him for me. It's the of this slum that made him lose everything. Mr. Gu has issued a ban order on xingxing.com and will not provide any commercial support in the future. His business and his life are all over. Zhao Gui's eyes were about to split, and his teeth were rattling. There's nothing he can do about Mr. Gu, but this little bastard. He must rip off his skin with his own hands, and then stab him with thousands of knives to relieve the hatred in his heart. Bai Jing dodged the light bullet of the man in black extremely fast, and his figure was so fast that only an afterimage remained. He took out the energy gun from behind his waist, and while dodging the bullet sideways, he aimed at a man in black and pulled the trigger. There was only a muffled sound. The bullet was right between the eyebrows, and the sound of bang exploded blood flowers, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. The man in black, who lost his head, fell heavily to the ground, and the blood on his neck was spurting. Another man in black touched the minced meat that had been splashed on his face and was stunned for a moment before he was shot in the head before he recovered. And Bai Jing, who had done all this, didn't even have a drop of blood on his body, and his expression was even more indifferent to the extreme. The corpses of the two men in black fell in front of Zhao Gui, and the gushing blood pooled into a blood-colored stream that flowed to Zhao Gui's feet, staining his leather shoes red. Zhao Gui was still thinking about how to torture the other party, but in a blink of an eye the killer he hired was dead, not even a corpse. Impossible. Impossible. He stared at the corpse on the ground with wide eyes, trembling all over, and took 2 steps back to escape. Save. Bang. With the sound of a low gunshot, Zhao Gui's fat body fell to the ground. He never thought that he would die in the hands of a delicate slum boy. Bai Jing's beautiful eyes watched the surroundings vigilantly. The road here is remote and the monitoring device has been destroyed, so no one should find it. Since the other party chose to start here, he must be interested in this. He put on the medical gloves usually used to isolate zombies, and quickly removed Zhao Gui's light brain from his wrist, picked up the pistol of the man in black and smashed it into pieces. Then he did the same to destroy the brains of the other two, and used this pistol to patch each of the 3 people's neck breaks to cover up the wound caused by the energy gun, and then put it back in the hands of the man in black. After doing this, Bai Jing avoided the blood on the ground and quickly left the scene. He didn't know whether he could be discovered by interstellar high-tech means, but since someone wanted his life, he would not let him go. After all, it's just to live. Bai Jing came to the rented room. The room was about 50 square meters, and the gray and white tone was clean and tidy. It was more than enough for one person. As soon as he entered the door, there was a white housework robot holding slippers and placing it at the door. He changed his shoes, wiped the energy gun, and put it in the corner of the cabinet. The bullets of the energy gun have all been used up. The bullets are specially made in the end times and cannot be replenished in the interstellar era, so this gun is useless. Bai Jing simply took a hot bath, put on a set of comfortable cotton pajamas, and came to the master bedroom. The master bedroom is very large, and there is a storage room in the innermost, which makes Bai Jing very satisfied. It can be used as a place to store food in the future. He opened his brain and ordered a green vegetable, a shiitake mushroom, a dozen eggs, 2 tomatoes, and 2 sets of ordinary clothes in the mall, costing a total of 1,000 stars. Compared with food, clothes are much cheaper, A set is only 100 stars. Delivery arrived in less than 5 minutes. Bai Jing took off his black-rimmed glasses and cooked a plate of scrambled eggs with tomato, a plate of mushrooms and vegetables in the kitchen, and served with fragrant rice, which was so delicious that he bit his tongue. He ate nothing left over from the 2 plates of stir-fried vegetables and ate 2 large bowls of rice, and he could make another egg-fried rice with the remaining rice. After eating and drinking, Bai Jing's beautiful brown eyes narrowed slightly, like a lazy and noble cat. The teenager who was lying on the bed showed a slender waist, and the complexion was extraordinarily white due to the lack of sunlight all the year round, like a fine jade. Now he has more than 20,000 star coins in his account. If he saves a little, it can last for about 2 months, but what about after that? Bai Jing thought of the dangerous gaze on the 2nd floor of Gu's stone gambling shop and Jiao Gui's fate, and the corners of his lips pursed lightly. He had a conflict with Jiao Gui today, and if he was noticed again, the risk would be too great. The method of stone betting is not applicable for the time being, so there is only one way to become a stone gambler. Now his ability limit is to perceive 10 pieces of wool. If there is no jade in these 10 pieces of wool, it means failure. So he can't just rely on abilities, he must master a series of stone gambling knowledge as soon as possible, so that he can select the best performing wool. Bai Jing turned on his brain to see how to become a stone gambler. The premise of becoming a stone gambler is to obtain the qualifications of a stone gambling apprentice first, and there are 3 requirements to become a stone gambling apprentice. Mental strength is above B level, at least once the gambling has been fully blocked, and the final assessment of the Stone Gambling Guild. His mental power level is A level, so there is no problem with this. Then he will have to bet once to fully block the wool before he can participate in the assessment of the Stone Gambling Association. In the next few days, Bai Jing began to study hard about stone gambling. Now the technology is very advanced. He can use the holographic projection to feel the touch of the wool while learning the knowledge of gambling stones. In this way, the combination of theory and practice is very efficient. Young Master Gu, Jiao Gui is dead. Xiaoan's face was slightly solemn. Yesterday, Mr. Gu issued a ban on Jiao Gui, and he died today. Although it won't have any impact on the Gu family, he feels that something is wrong. Have you found the murderer? Gu Yuanchao asked lazily, leaning on the sofa with his straight legs folded. Not yet. The satellite surveillance of the incident site was destroyed. There were no witnesses. The sound shielding device was also turned on, and no suspicious fingerprints or footprints were detected around. Both Jiao Gui and the 2 thugs were shot in the head, and their movements were neat, like a professional killer. Well, tell the Interstellar police, don't need to investigate, don't waste resources for this kind of scum. Gu Yuanchao said casually, stood up from the leather sofa, and walked into the training room. Yes, Joan replied respectfully, and after exiting the room, he dialed the video of the head of the Interstellar Guard Bureau. In the video, the other party said yes and did not dare to refute. The protective door of the training room slowly closed. Gu Yuanchao pressed the white space button on his chest, and instantly a silver-white mecha 20 meters high appeared in the training room. Every inch of the mecha's lines are smooth to the extreme, showing a bright metallic color under the illumination of the light, which can be called the most perfect artwork. Gu Yuanchao entered the mecha, quickly clicked a few times on the light brain, and entered the Star Network to participate in the virtual mecha battle. Recently, alien beasts have a tendency to make a comeback. As a major general of the Empire, he has to prepare early. The purpose of his visit to Proxima Centauri this time is to find a few pieces of top-quality jade to satisfy the terrifying consumption of the super mecha, but the current progress is not ideal. Chapter 7. A week later, Bai Jing's notebook was filled with dense knowledge points, all of which were related to gambling stones. However, this knowledge is relatively fragmented and can only be regarded as a preliminary understanding. He turned off his light brain and prepared to go to the wool area to experience it on the spot, and strive to bet up a piece of wool as soon as possible in order to obtain the qualification for the assessment of the stone gambling apprentice. Before falling asleep, Bai Jing searched the nearby wool area, and there were 3 in total. Sure enough, the largest of them is Gu's number 5 wool material area, which belongs to the industry of Gu's. After checking the route, Bai Jing lay on the soft bed and had a good night's sleep. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Bai Jing finished washing up, wearing the most common white tee, black trousers, and old-fashioned black-rimmed glasses, and went out the door. Walking on a remote path, he found that the bodies of Jiao Gui and the three had disappeared, and the minced meat and splattered blood on the ground had also been cleaned up to leave no trace. Bai Jing glanced at random and walked to the suspension car pickup point without changing his face. Walking to the platform, he relaxed slightly. It has been a whole week since the last killing of Jiao Gui and the three of them, and until now there has been no movement. He should have escaped for the time being. There were not many people on the early bus, and Bai Jing followed everyone onto the white suspended train and took a seat in the corner. The levitating train is like a long-shaped spaceship floating in the air. It shuttles rapidly on the spiral track, rising and falling, too fast to see the scenery outside the window. Bai Jing's slender fingers tightly grasped the armrests on both sides, his whole body tense, and he closed his eyes desperately to resist the weightlessness and dizziness caused by the high speed. In less than 2 minutes, the suspended train slowly stopped at the station. Bai Jing's face turned pale. He immediately untied the protective belt and staggered out of the car door. On the other hand, everyone else in the car looked as usual, and there was no discomfort caused by the high speed. It seemed that they had long been used to it. Most people got off the bus at this stop, and the moment they opened the door, they walked towards the wool area. Bai Jing sat on the bench outside and relieved for a long time, before he restrained the desire to vomit a little. The entrance of Gu's number 5 woolen area. Bai Jing pointed the optical brain at the detection instrument, and a sweet electronic voice sounded. The credit of the citizen with ID 105-316-6247 has been approved. Please enter. As soon as he entered the hall, the detector behind him sounded a warning sound. Warning! Warning! Citizen with ID 982348501 has failed the credit review, and the Guzmine has been deprived of the right to gamble. Fuck. Isn't it because the loan of 10,000 star coins hasn't been repaid yet? I'll have to gamble. A middle-aged man with a frenzied expression was dragged out of the door by 2 tall men in uniform. Bai Jing didn't look back and walked straight into this bright hall. There are 5 entrances on the right side of the hall, marked with AE above. There is only one entrance on the left side of the hall, marked with the letter S. Hundreds of blue reception robots shuttled through the hall. As long as they swiped on the central screen with their optical brains, they would take the initiative to answer questions. Bai Jing swept behind the others, and a blue robot came to him with a da-da-da. Robot no. G5178 is at your service. Xiaolin will solve any problems of the guest. The round blue fat man's eyes narrowed into 2 horizontal lines, and he looked extraordinarily well behaved. Bai Jing, excuse me, what do the letters at these entrances represent? He had just come into contact with gambling stones, and he didn't understand many common sense things. Xiaolan replied, these letters represent the grade of the wool area. Every time a batch of rough stones comes to Guzwool area, they will be divided by many professional stone gamblers to ensure that the price and quality of rough stones are relatively matched. The wool material in the S area is the highest grade, which is mainly auctioned. The E area is the lowest grade. Bai Jing, what is the approximate price of wool in areas D and E? Xiao Lan replied, there are 3 grades of wool in the D grade wool area, and the prices are 1W, 3W, and 5W stars respectively. The E grade wool area, also known as the scrap area, sells for 500 stars per kilogram of wool. Okay, thank you. Bai Jing looked at the balance on his brain, only less than 20,000 star coins, and can only be screened in the E grade wool area. You're welcome. Do you have any questions? Little Blue will answer you right away. I don't need it for the time being. He planned to go directly to the E grade wool area to select wool. Please comment on this service of G5178 robot. 5 points means very satisfied, thank you. Bai Jing blankly clicked on the option with only 5 points, received a thank you from the little blue fat man, and then it ran to the next customer with a da-da-da. Area he had the most people, and Bai Jing waited in line for a few minutes to get in. There are several rows of long stone platforms in the vast space. Each stone platform is divided into hundreds of grids, large and small, separated by transparent special materials. A piece of wool is displayed in each grid, and next to it is a small bucket of water and tools such as a strong light that is necessary for gambling stones. There are many people in the E-grade wool area. Some people walk together to observe the wool materials in the same grid. Some people choose slowly by themselves, and everyone looks at it very seriously. Bai Jing intends to stay here all the time today and observe the characteristics of wool up close. This week, he learned a lot about gambling stones at Xinguang. He also used holographic technology to touch wool, but it was not as effective as practicing in the gambling casino. Betting on stones. The first thing to check is the crystallization of the surface of the wool skin. Generally speaking, coarse leather has large crystals, soft structure, low hardness, and poor transparency. This kind of coarse leather is not suitable for stone gambling. The fine leather material has small crystals, compact structure, fine texture, high hardness, and good transparency. The crystallization of the sand leather material is between the first two, and the quality changes greatly, but there are also good materials, and it has a strong gamble. After understanding the initial judgment criteria, Bai Jing did not use his senses, but observed the wool material in turn along the stone platform. As far as his current perception is concerned, there are only 10 opportunities to probe the wool, which must not be wasted. The first thing Bai Jing observed was the wool material numbered E1. This piece of wool is about the size of a basketball, and it is an irregular oval. The surface is gray-white and covered with a sand-like substance. It is a white sand leather shell. When he touched it with his hand, it felt a little rough to the touch. After being sprinkled with water, the surface dries very quickly, indicating that the wool was not performing well. He quickly retracted his gaze. Next, Bai Jing took a look at the numbers one by one. He first observed the surface of the leather shell and touched the texture of the wool skin with his hands to judge the thickness of the crystals. When the judgment is inaccurate, scoop a little water and pour it on the surface of the wool to observe how fast the water dries on the stone. The slow drying means the varieties with smaller crystals and relatively good texture. Because Bai Jing's ability is perception ability, his 5 senses will be much stronger than others, and his sense of wool surface is more accurate. By observing the surface of a whole row of wool, he has been able to accurately judge the degree of crystallinity of the leather. After excluding all the coarse leather materials, only more than 10 fine leather materials and sand leather materials with the best performance were selected, and the numbers were recorded and continued to be observed. The second step of gambling stone is to observe the green on the wool, that is, the pine flower. Songhua refers to the green deposits that can play a role in analyzing and judging gambling stones. As the saying goes, it is better to buy a line than a piece. It means that there is a large green on the surface, but there is no jade inside. It is better to choose a pine flower with a linear or lumpy skin, which is more likely to appear green. In this way, half of the more than 10 wools have been eliminated, leaving 7. According to the direction of the python belt, the distribution of ringworm, and the presence or absence of fissures and other various judgment criteria, Bai Jing left the last 3 wool materials that basically meet the characteristics. Looking at the 3 finally selected wool materials, Bai Jing took a deep breath, put his hand on the first wool material and pretended to observe carefully, and manipulated his perception to slowly penetrate into the interior. A minute later, he withdrew his hand. The wool was dead and there was no jade. He came to the second piece of wool not far away, followed the same method, and penetrated his perception into the wool, but there was still no response. He looked at the third piece of wool. The external performance of this wool was actually not as good as the 2 just now, but for some reason, Bai Jing had an eye for it as soon as he saw it. Perception condenses into a thin line and penetrates deep into the surface of the wool material, and the active response is felt as soon as it enters the epidermis. The response was not very strong, but it extended to the bottom. Bai Jing roughly estimated that it should be 6 or 7 kilograms. He immediately scanned the code below with his light brain and spent 5,000 star coins to buy this piece of wool. At the moment when the wool material started, Bai Jing felt a long-lost sense of satisfaction, and a smile unconsciously overflowed from his lips. He finally understood why so many people like to gamble on stones. The thrill of betting on the right treasure among the many wool materials is really fascinating. The self-driving white shopping cart came to him at the right time. Bai Jing held the piece of wool with both hands and carefully put it in. Then, Bai Jing carefully observed nearly 50 wool materials and only selected 5 that performed relatively well. He was much faster than just now, this time in less than 2 hours. The 5 pieces of wool have been detected by perception. Except for one of them, which has a very weak active response, all the other pieces are dead. And the jade in the piece of wool that had a weak reaction was only the size of a ping-pong ball. so I'm afraid it wasn't even half the cost. In the whole morning, Bai Jing checked a total of more than 100 pieces of wool material, detected 8 pieces with his senses, and finally found only 1 piece of material that could produce jade. It has to be said that the probability of this is simply terrifyingly low. The E area is worthy of being the scrap area. The wools that perform slightly better are rare, and of course the price is cheap enough. Bai Jing looked at the continuous flow of people in Area E and planned to go to Area D to see it, hoping that Area D could bring him more different experiences. Chapter 8. Before going to Area D, Bai Jing picked out a small piece of wool in Area E and bought it for 1,000 star coins. He had just detected it with his senses, and there was no emerald in this piece of wool. In this way, the 2 pieces of wool will not be too conspicuous if 1 piece of wool rises and 1 piece crosses. The placement of the D-grade wool area is not much different from that of the E area. The only difference is that the wool is placed in 3 grades, marked with 1W, 3W, and 5W prices, and the protection is more stringent. There are also many people in District D, most of them alone or in groups of 3 or 2, but a group of people is very conspicuous. There are about 20 of them. They are surrounded by a young man dressed in luxurious clothes. Vast. Bai Jing glanced at it, then retracted his gaze, and began to carefully observe the wool. The wool in the D area is obviously much better than the E area, and most of them are fine leather and sand leather. If there is coarse leather, it also has pine flowers or python belts, etc., each with its own characteristics, and each has a certain degree of gambling. Based on Bai Jing's current cognition, it is difficult to distinguish the good from the bad. It seems that gambling on stones is far from being as simple as he imagined. Even if you have a lot of theoretical knowledge, you are familiar with the performance of all wool materials. But without rich experience in gambling stones, without systematic guidance, or lack of a little luck, you can't solve jade. What's more, Bai Jing's theoretical knowledge is still in its infancy. He observed while walking along the stone platform, jotting down a few notes in his notebook from time to time. After a while, Bai Jing keenly heard noisy discussions not far away. He looked up and found that many people were pointing around a piece of wool. It was the same group of people just now. Others were attracted by the discussion, and more people gathered around the piece of wool. The young man surrounded by the crowd was about 20 years old, wearing a good quality silk shirt, handsome features, and the arrogance unique to a rich boy. At this time, his chin was slightly raised, and he was talking proudly to the people around him. Bai Jing saw that the young man had a silver badge pinned to his chest, with a pentagram pattern on the outside and the word 3 marked in the center. In fact, he had seen this kind of badge on the stone gamblers of Gu's stone gambling shop, but he didn't care about it at the time. Now it seems that it should be a sign of the stone gambler's identity. When the young man's name was Min Qing, he became a third-level stone gambler at the age of 22, with outstanding qualifications. However, he just lost a stone betting battle, and he was very upset. Hearing that young Master Gu came to Proxima Centauri, Min Qingshi, a stone gambler, immediately signed up for the stone gambling battle, and spent a whole day carefully selecting 5 pieces of wool. Last night, he was so excited that he didn't sleep all night. He wanted to show himself well in front of his sweetheart, but he didn't expect that the wool that was selected by thousands of people would all collapse. And the one who fought against him was just a trivial second-level stone gambler, but he turned out to be jade. Although it was a piece of jadeite with poor water quality, it undoubtedly hit young Master Min's self-esteem deeply and made him feel hatred. How dare he lose face in front of his favorite idol? When Min Qingshi left the stone gambling shop, his face was gloomy, and he sent someone to quietly stop the second-level stone gambling master in a secluded place and beat him hard to relieve his anger. Then he came here to relax and deliberately chose the D area with lower rough stone prices. Seeing the group of garbage around him who were not even stone gambling apprentices trying their best to praise him because of the silver medal on his chest, his mood finally improved. If you can get a good jadeite in the D area, Gu Shao will think of him with admiration. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on his lips, and he put down his body to explain to everyone. I said earlier, in addition to the crystal distribution on the surface of gambling stones, the pine flowers and python belts on it, but also the ringworm and the fissure. Fractures refer to the cracks on the wool material. The big ones are called cracks, and the small ones are called tresses. As the saying goes, I would rather gamble on sex, not bet on tresses, and don't be afraid of big cracks and small tresses. Look at this wool. It looks like it's doing well, but... Min Qingshi pointed at the very small cracks under the wool with his white-gloved fingers. This fine tuft is hidden deep and spread to the inside. If you don't look carefully, you can't detect it at all. It will definitely collapse if you buy it. Min Qingshi thinks the wool is dirty and wears white gloves on weekdays. This pair of gloves is the most cutting-edge technology product. The price is 1 million star coins. It seems that there is nothing to wear, and there is no difference in the feel of direct contact. Wow, it's really a crack. It's a test of eyesight. You can't tell it from another person. Yeah, Min Xiao is really amazing. He deserves to be a third-level stone gambler. Thanks to Master Min for explaining it to everyone. Let us learn another lesson. Hearing everyone's compliments, Min Qingshi couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. Humph, his eyesight has been praised by Master Gu Lubai, who is an 8th-level stone gambler. Unfortunately, the most respected stone gambler in the empire never accepts apprentices easily, and he is also a direct descendant of the Gu family. Nothing can be done. Bai Jing had just joined the crowd and carefully observed the piece of wool while listening to the young man's explanation. His exposure to gambling stones was too short, and it was the time when he was eager to absorb knowledge. The young man really spoke well, and it was obvious that he had received very formal training. However, Bai Jing had a slightly different opinion on the judgment of this piece of wool. It is true that the other party's eyesight is excellent, but Bai Jing has the extraordinary eyesight brought by his supernatural ability, and he can see more clearly than the young man. The bottom of the piece of wool did have a few cracks, but it did not penetrate deep into the interior, but was affected by the cracks and dryness of the wool itself, creating an illusion of depth. In order to prove his conjecture, Bai Jing probed his perception into the wool material, and sure enough, he felt a super active reaction when he approached the center position, even more active than the ice jadeite that Liu opened last time. It is very likely that it is a glass-type jadeite. Bai Jing's heart moved, and he immediately planned to buy this piece of wool. The jadeite of the glass type is rare, but since he found it, he would never let it go. There are more than 10,000 stars left in his account, just enough to buy the wool with a price of 10,000. As it approached noon, there were more and more people in the D area. The new guests saw a group of people gathered here, and they came around curiously. Bai Jing lowered his eyes, his long eyelashes fluttered like a small fan, and a silhouette was sprinkled behind the lens. He originally planned to wait for the young people to leave before buying the wool, so as not to attract unnecessary attention, but now it's too late. If someone else takes the lead, before it was too late, Bai Jing avoided the crowd and walked directly to the wool. Guang now scanned the number marked with D025, indicating that the payment was complete, and carefully put the wool into the shopping cart. Naturally, his actions did not hide the eyes of others. Seeing that this frugally dressed young man with a pair of old-fashioned black-rimmed glasses actually bought the wool material they just discussed, everyone's eyes became contemptuous, and some were surprised. Young man, didn't you hear that? Young Master Min said that the bottom of the wool fabric is cracked. Cut, I saw him just now. As a novice, I still don't listen to advice. I deserve to be blocked. Bah, are you crazy to want to make money? Dare to buy such a stone? Hey, look at what he's wearing. This kind of slum people also want to get rich overnight? I'm really laughing to death. Bai Jing turned a deaf ear to all the ridicule, and his face was terribly calm. No matter what these people say, they can't hurt him, and they are not as powerful as the claws of zombies in the apocalypse. Today, he has harvested a lot. 2 of the 3 pieces of wool he bought are jadeite, and one of them is a rare glass species. He planned to untie the other 2 wools first, and when the crowd dissipated, he would pick 1 or 2 pieces of cheap wool and mix and untie the glass seed. In this way, even if someone saw it, they would only think that he was lucky and would not suspect anything. Just as Bai Jing was about to leave, an extremely angry voice came from behind him. Stop! Bai Jing didn't intend to pay attention, but was surrounded by more than 20 young people who followed him, firmly blocking his way. Min Qingshi looked up and down Bai Jing with very uncomfortable eyes. When he saw the other party's simple dress and scraps in the shopping cart, contempt flashed in his eyes, and there was also an expression of disgust on his face. Oh, it's so dirty. It's from the slums. Min Qingshi basically confirmed the identity of the other party and spoke more arrogantly. Just you, put the piece of wool back immediately, or it will be regarded as a challenge to the authority of the third-level stone gambler. Bai Jing frowned and said indifferently, I have already bought this piece of wool. Min Qingshi sneered and looked at Bai Jing condescendingly. So what if you buy it? I'll let you put it back. Don't you understand? You slum bastard. Bai Jing's eyes instantly cooled down. What if I don't let it go? Then let's take a bet on whether this wool will go up or down. I'm down. If I win, you kneel down and apologize to me and go back to your ghetto. I'm sick of seeing you here. If you win, Min Qingshi sneered, feeling that it was a fantasy. Seeing that you are so poor, how about giving you 500,000 stars? As soon as these words came out, the people next to him all burst into laughter, looking at Bai Jing with teasing and contempt. As citizens of the empire, they have a natural sense of superiority to the wastes born in the slums. These useless garbage should be wiped out. Living is a waste of resources. 5 million star coins. Bai Jing said lightly. No problem. Min Qingshi smiled and brushed the broken hair in front of his forehead. Whether it was 500,000 or 5 million star coins, it was useless. He would never lose. And you can just take this opportunity to become famous. Why not do it? If you are fortunate enough to hear it in Gu Xiao's ears, he will treat him differently. Let's go. Let's go to the Cal site. Min Qing is extremely excited at this moment, even a little impatient. He wants to let everyone know his extraordinary eyesight and stone gambling ability. Bai Jing didn't say a word and followed the other party in the direction of Xieshe. The 20 or so people followed closely behind, attracting the attention of others in the D area. A young man and a few friends were touching a piece of wool and couldn't pay attention. When they saw this wave of people walking by, they couldn't help but patted one of them on the shoulder. Brother, what's the situation? Hey, young Master Min made a bet with a newcomer who doesn't know what to do. The bet is quite big. Not everyone wants to see that newcomer kneeling and begging for mercy. After he finished speaking, he saw the team distanced himself from him and hurriedly followed. The young man and his friend looked at each other, wrote down the number of the wool in their hands, and followed. By the time Bai Jing arrived at the Jesher district, there were already many people behind him. There are 20 calcite chambers here. The first 5 are VIP areas, only for grade B or above will calcification, and the calcite masters are also the best. The last 5 are self-help calcite areas, where gamblers can calcine by themselves. Number 6 to 15 in the middle is the ordinary calcifying area. According to the master's calcifying ability, the calcifying ability is ranked from high to low. The master of number 6 calcifying room costs 1,000 star coins for one shot, and the lowest room number 15 only costs 100 star coins. Bai Jing directly chose the calcic master in room 15, which was also the cheapest. He has inquired about the masters who can be hired by the Gu family are very powerful, and there is basically no time to miss. Min Qingshi laughed out loud when he saw this Pu Qi. Before he became a stone gambler, he first learned to solve the stone, and the wool he chose was the most fulfilling. Even if he chooses Master Sure, he will choose the best room 6 master. TSK, the people in the slums are really poor, and they can't even afford a good teacher. There were about 2 or 3 people in front of room 15, and Bai Jing waited for a while before it was his turn. The people before him should have been blocked and walked out with a look of depression. Bai Jing took out the wool material numbered D025 and handed it to Master Xieshe. The calcite master in room 15, surnamed Wang, is also an old master here. He carefully observed the pine flowers on the surface of the wool, the distribution of the python belt, etc., and operated the stone cutter to cut a knife in the direction of the fine strands. This knife cut off the wool that was wide by the leather. As expected, there were white stones inside, and there were many small cracks at the incision. Bai Jing was not surprised. He felt that the jadeite was close to the middle, and it was still some distance away from where it was now cut. There is no sign of green at all, and it is estimated that there is no drama. Yeah, this knife has cut nearly a third of it, and there is nothing. The fine strands are all in, and even if there is jade in it, it will be destroyed. Everyone was talking. Most of them were not optimistic, but there were also different voices. It was a middle-aged man with more experience in gambling stones. This is not necessarily. You see that the crack is showing signs of weakening. Maybe it will come out green with the next knife. Min Qingshi looked at the middle-aged man displeased, and Xiao Run, who was next to him, saw young Master Min's face and was overjoyed. This was a good opportunity to express himself. He hurriedly said loudly, "Young Master Min has already seen this piece of wool, and there are cracks at the bottom that go deep into the interior, but we don't have the same excellent eyesight as young Master Min." This little brother obviously didn't repent when he heard it. I had no choice but to make a bet with him. As soon as these words came out, the middle-aged man who just spoke suddenly fell silent. He is just an amateur, but the other party is a third-level stone gambler. Maybe he is really wrong? The people who followed along the way also understood, and looked at Min Qingshi with admiration, but turned to Bai Jingshi and shook their heads. As a newcomer, it is not honest to learn the knowledge of stone gambling, observe the experience of other people in stone selection, but think about opportunism all day long, and even go his own way when a professional stone gambler gives advice. I really do not know good or bad. After the wool is completely removed, the face will be swollen. Min Qingshi felt the attention of everyone and the growing reputation, and glanced at Xiao Run with admiration. The latter was secretly delighted that he might be able to catch up with young Master Min this time. The Min family made their fortune by gambling stones. Although they are not as well known as the famous families in Capital Star, they can also be ranked first in Proxima Centauri. If they can catch up with Min Xiao, Wouldn't he want to rise to the top? Bai Jing's beautiful brown eyes stared at the wool material intently, not caring what other people said at all. After discussing with Master Xiesher, he began to cut the second knife. Master Wang's technique was quick, steady, accurate, and neat. When the second knife went down, the crack at the incision disappeared, and instead a layer of translucent white mist-like crystals emerged. He sprinkled some water on the incision and took a look at it with a yellow light. The inside was glowing with a light green color, which was very pleasing. Is it out of fog? In the silent environment, someone whispered first. It's fog or white fog. There's green in the fog. It's definitely going up. Chapter 9. Min Qingshi's face instantly turned pale. How could there be white fog? The white fog means that the foundation is clean. There is green under the white fog. It must be pure green, and it is easy to get high green. How? There are obviously small fissures that extend all the way to the inside. Yes, this is just an appearance. The jade inside must be all cracks. It must be like this. Even though he thought so, Min Qingshi's face was still pale, and his hands were shaking uncontrollably. Thinking of this, he glared at Xiao Ren fiercely. If it wasn't for this person's hype, how would so many people know about it? Xiao Ren saw Min Qingshi's eyes, and his heart slammed. It's broken. With this young masterman's character, he will definitely get revenge on him. He lowered his head and sneaked away when everyone was not paying attention. Here, Master Wang is still dissolving the stone. He replaced the automatic stone cutter with a grinding wheel with higher precision and slowly wiped the stone along the foggy surface. Oh my god, it's up, it's ice. It hasn't reached the center yet, and the innermost is probably a rare glass species. It's hard to say. It doesn't count as an increase, it has to be cut up. After rubbing out a part of the jade, Master Wang observed it for a long time, and then used the automatic stone cutter to cut a few knives around the wool and cut off all the excess parts, and the outline of the jade began to be revealed. Now everyone consciously shut their mouths, watching Master Wang's movements intently, even breathing a little lighter. With the meticulous polishing, the complete jadeite is slowly displayed in front of everyone. The overall size of jadeite is only the size of an adult fist. It is a regular oval and weighs about 2 or 3 kilograms. The outer layer is lustrous, translucent, fresh, and refreshing ice seeds. The inner layer is a highly transparent, pure, and transparent glass seed. Master Wang is also the first time to unravel the top jadeite of the glass species. At this time, the hand holding the jadeite is trembling. He carefully observed this piece of jade. The interior was almost completely transparent. The texture was delicate, clear, and flawless, so pure that there was no trace of impurities. The light green color seeps into the interior, like a bud that has been washed by the rain. The rest of the people also opened their eyes wide to look at this piece of glass green jadeite. Their eyes were full of obsession, and no one made a sound for a long time. It wasn't until one of them couldn't resist bidding that the silence was broken. Little brother, I bid 4 million stars for this piece of glass jade. Sell it to me. I'll give out 4.5 million star coins. 5 million. 6 million stars. Such high-quality glass jadeite can be found but not sought after, and even if this piece of jadeite is not large, it has attracted people to bid wildly. In the end, the 2.68 kilograms glass verdant green jadeite was auctioned for a high price of 7.6 million star coins. Bai Jing quickly sold the jadeite. Looking at the rapidly increasing numbers on his account, his lips twitched. After the transaction, he walked up to Min Qingshi, who was pale and defeated, and said indifferently, "You lost. As for the 5 million star coins you promised..." Before Bai Jing could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Min Qingshi gnashing his teeth. "I know. It's only 5 million star coins, and I don't care." Oh my god, 5 million star coins. Some people couldn't help exclaiming when they didn't know the content of the bet. When everyone else looked at Min Qing with shocked and complicated eyes, some even whispered a few words. "I dare to gamble because this kid is a newcomer and can be bullied. I didn't expect that in the end. Stealing chickens won't make a profit. Hey, genius bet. Sure or something, that's all." Everyone's sneering or suspicious eyes were like loud slaps hitting him on the face, making Min Qingshi's face turn blue and white, and he was no longer arrogant at the beginning. It's over. Now his reputation is over. There are so many onlookers today, and the matter of betting on the best jade can't be concealed. And what he has done will also be publicized along with it. Thinking of the contempt in the eyes of the family and other stone gamblers, and even Gu Xiao sighed. Min Qingshi could not wait to get into the crack of the ground immediately. The worst thing is that he doesn't have 5 million stars in his account at all. Wait me a moment. Feeling the eyes of everyone around him staring at him, Min Qingshi couldn't break his promise, so he could only bite the bullet and call his father Min Shang. He didn't dare to tell his father that he lost the bet. He only said that he liked a piece of A-grade wool that performed very well and needed star coins urgently. Min Shang scolded Min Qingshi fiercely on the phone, calling him unrestrained. But he only had this one son, so he still transferred star coins to him. Min Qingshi quickly transferred the 5 million star coins to Bai Jing and walked out of the Gu's woolen yard as if escaping. When he came to the street, he suddenly felt at a loss. How would he tell his father that he might soon become a laughing stock in the stone gambling world and even bring shame to his family? It's all the fault of that slum bastard, and it's all his fault for buying that piece of wool. If it wasn't for him, how could he have fallen to this point? There was a ruthless look in Min Qingshi's eyes. He would never let him go. After unwrapping the glass seeds, Bai Jing still had 2 pieces of wool in his shopping cart. Because the top-quality jadeite has just been opened, the onlookers have not dispersed, waiting for him to untie the remaining wool. Master Wang also smiled and pressed the button beside him, and saw that the indicator light in front of the door of room 15 suddenly flashed, which was particularly conspicuous, indicating that room 15 had released the soaring jadeite. Gambling stones is inseparable from luck, so people who gamble on stones also believe in fortune. When the lights are on, many people who plan to go to other windows to solve the stones come around. While waiting for Bai Jing gesture, the crowd gestured to the people who came over, including the bet between Min Shao and this young man. How delicate, lustrous, clear, and flawless the glass seeds that were solved made other people excited. Bai Jing took out the piece of wool that he picked at random later. The wool material is very poor. The rough skin and the pine flowers on the outside are all connected together, and there is gray-black ringworm underneath, which makes people frown at a glance. Master Wang was still happy. He was very satisfied that he was able to solve a piece of top-quality jadeite from glass with his own hands today, and the business brought about by this surge would not be bad. He picked up the wool and placed it in front of the automatic stone cutter. After a few glances, Master Wang knew that there was a high probability that there was no jade in it. The wool itself is not big, and its performance is not good, so there is almost no suspense for the calcite master who has untied an unknown number of wools. Sure enough, after a few knives, all the stones that came out were white flowers. Now less than 1/3 of the wool remains. It can be said to be stable. Hey, it looks like I'm still a novice, and the quality of the wool I chose is very poor. Yeah, you can't get jade when you look at this wool. No, it seems that the glass seed just now was lucky. Nevertheless, this luck is against the sky. Seeing that this piece of wool was ruined, people sighed again and again, and they had no doubts about Bai Jing. However, he is a novice who doesn't know anything. I don't know what kind of luck I have taken, and it is really enviable to open a top-quality jade. Forget it, there's nothing to see. Most of the surrounding crowd left at once, but the people waiting for the solution did not leave, but instead lined up in a long queue. Master Wang saw that there was still a piece of wool in Bai Jing's shopping cart and said genially, "Are you still going to solve it?" Bai Jing shook his head gently. "I'm a little hungry now. I'll go have a meal first, and I'll come to you later." There was also jade in the last piece of wool, and he planned to wait for the crowd to disperse before returning to the calcination. "Then master, please explain me first." As soon as Bai Jing finished speaking, the person behind him stepped forward immediately, his tone a little eager. He is still waiting for the luck of the glass seed. It will be bad if the young man loses his gamble again. Bai Jing used his light brain to transfer 1,000 star coins to Master Wang. This is a custom in the stone gambling world. Whenever there is a big rise, Master Xiesher will be given a big red envelope. The balance displayed on Guangnao's account was 12.6 million star coins. Bai Jing's beautiful eyes were slightly curved. These star coins were enough for him to squander his whole life. He plans to buy a bigger house and store a room of food, and it would be better if the remaining star coins could buy a mecha. Thinking of the tall mechas that were more than 10 meters tall that he saw on the star network, Bai Jing's heart was filled with fiery heat. Although his genetic level is only D level, he is temporarily unable to drive a mecha, but it does not prevent him from wanting to obtain a mecha of his own, which is the dream of all men. Bai Jing came to the rest area and sat on the bench in the corner drinking nutrient solution. After drinking the 2 nutrient solutions, I finally relieved the feeling of an empty stomach. But when he was about to get up after resting for a while, he suddenly felt a strong dizziness, and his upright body instantly fell back to the bench. About 10 minutes later, the unpleasant dizziness slowly subsided. Bai Jing's entire back was wet with cold sweat, and he half leaned on the back of the chair and closed his eyes to adjust his rapid breathing. This feeling is stronger than when his ability reached the limit last time, but today he has not used his perception more than 10 times, and his body is much better than when he first came, so this should not happen. After his body recovered a little, Bai Jing got up with a dignified expression, intending to untangle the last piece of wool and go back immediately. The crowd in room 15 has dispersed, and only a dozen people are left watching the solution. Master Wang moved very quickly, and almost all the wool materials of the people who were in line were almost untied, and there were the last 2 pieces left. Seeing Bai Jing, Master Wang greeted eagerly, "Wait a moment, it will be ready soon." After waiting for about 20 minutes, Master Wang put the cut stone aside and picked up the last piece of wool that Bai Jing handed out. This piece of wool is about the size of a football. It is round and weighs 10 kilograms. It is a yellow sand leather shell, and the surface is covered with dot-shaped pine flowers. Master Wang observed the direction of the pine flowers and cut a finger thick along the leather shell, and with a single knife, it turned green. He drenched some water on the surface, revealing some rough-cut surfaces with obvious graininess, and it looked like grains of mung beans were arranged in them. It's a bean seed. It turned green with a single knife, which is really good. If you eat this green, the jade is not small. Little brother, how about selling this piece of wool for 30,000 star coins? If you don't eat this green, you will lose money. I'll pay 40,000 stars, sell it to me. Several middlemen who often buy wool saw business opportunities and made bids one after another. Bai Jing didn't agree. He used his perception to detect this piece of wool. Except for the slightly thicker leather shell, it was basically full of jadeite, definitely more than 40,000 star coins. Master Wang continued to dissociate the stones, using a cutting machine to cut off the surrounding waste rocks, and quickly disassembled a piece of bean seed young green jadeite with edges and corners, roughly estimated to be 6 or 7 kilograms. Bean seed jade is the middle and low grade of jade, and it is very common. In the jargon, there are 9 beans out of 10, which shows its extensiveness. However, this jadeite was evenly bright in color and large in size, and was finally sold at the price of 180,000 star coins. The people present congratulated Bai Jing. It is very lucky to be able to get such jade from the scraps, which is really enviable. Bai Jing walked out of the wool area. The suspended train arrived at the station soon, and he followed the crowd into the door. The weightlessness brought by the high-speed speeding made him dizzy for a while, and the body that had slowed down a little before became weak again for some reason, and his body was limp and powerless. Bai Jing's fingers gripping the armrest exerted force until the knuckles turned white, and the muscles on his arms were tensed to the extreme. In a state of half asleep and half awake, his keen perception made him aware of the crisis. Someone is touching his light brain. Bai Jing's eyes instantly became sharp as knives, and the inertia brought by the apocalypse made him agilely turn over from the armrest and kicked the tall man who came over. The man was kicked over by a sudden force, and his body didn't stop until the next carriage. When the next stop arrived, the man climbed up with difficulty, spat out a mouthful of blood, and flew out of the car while clutching his abdomen. Bai Jing was covered in cold sweat, trying to maintain his balance, and returned to his seat. He took off his glasses, his stern eyes were like knives, and he swept the surroundings coldly. The person who saw the eyes trembled involuntarily and immediately restrained his mind. The people who came out of the slums fought ruthlessly, or not? Don't provoke him yet. These people have been eyeing Bai Jing since they unraveled the glass-type jadeite, and they followed him all the way here when Gu Shi didn't dare to attack directly. Seeing that the young man was weak, they thought of taking the opportunity to make a move, but they were frightened by this kid's ruthlessness and did not dare to act rashly for a while. The speed of the suspended train was very fast, and in a blink of an eye, it arrived at the place where Bai Jing got off. Several people looked at each other and followed him out of the car door. If it was normal, Bai Jing would have kicked these weak chickens to the ground with one foot. But now his limbs are weak. He can only walk forward. He deliberately chose to get off the bus at the nearest stop to Gu's stone gambling shop, gritted his teeth, and walked quickly. There is Gu's property, and looking at the entire empire, no one dares to run wild on Gu's territory. Only then did a few people realize what he was thinking and hurriedly glanced at each other, but it was too late. They watched helplessly as the other party entered Gu's stone gambling shop, so they spit unwillingly and gave up the action. The lobby of the stone gambling shop was still full of people. Bai Jing leaned his entire back against the smooth wall of the door, his arms hanging softly by his side, constantly adjusting his breathing. Dong 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 dash, his heart was beating very fast, completely beyond the normal speed. and his temples were also beating constantly, throbbing and throbbing in pain. The noisy voice seemed to come from another world, and everything in front of him became blurred. If it weren't for the strong willpower that he had trained in the last days, he would have collapsed on the ground and unconscious. Chapter 10. Young Master Gu. The D area of number 5 wool material area actually has glass jadeite. Xiaoan's face was solemn. This kind of wool material should not be classified in the D area. It seems that Rong Xian's ability is nothing more than that, and he is worthless as a 7th level stone gambler. Gu Yuanshao sneered, and his handsome face showed a faint mockery. Go and replace him. If it wasn't for his uncle, an 8th level stone gambler, who was still lying in the medical cabin for treatment, where would he be able to get him? But the 7th level stone gambler has only Du Feng from the Du family. The Du family has its own mine, plus your engagement contract. Xiaoan hesitated. You don't need to contact Du Feng. Find a few more 6th level stone gamblers, and they will divide the wool together. In addition, Gu Yuanshao's voice had a hint of coolness. I have never admitted this engagement, so don't mention it again in the future.
Yes.
Xiaoan replied in a low voice, wiping the cold sweat on his forehead without a trace. He accidentally touched young Master Gu's scale. Gu Shao hates being arranged by others the most. He has quarreled with the family many times over the marriage, and almost fell out with the owner of the family. By the way, who was the person who issued the glass-type jade? Gu Yuanshao asked thoughtfully with his slender and straight legs crossed. Since his uncle Gu Lubai was attacked by a strange beast's mental power 2 years ago, he has been lying in the medical cabin for treatment, and I am afraid that he will not wake up in the next few years. If this person has a certain talent for gambling stones, the Gu family can make great efforts to cultivate it. Oh, it's a man named Bai Jing, 18 years old this year, from a slum. Coincidentally, the young master of the Min family had to bet against him, one person betting up and the other betting cross. Master Min lost 5 million stars in the bet because of this, and his reputation plummeted. Oh, the Min family is not clean. Gu Yuanshao sneered, that Min Xing is even more stupid. Although the Min family made their fortune from gambling, they usually persecute and suppress those gambling masters with no background, and their reputation in Proxima is not good. Xiaoan. Well, it's not Min Qing, it's Min Qing sure. My boss is good at everything, but he is too lazy to remember names. But it doesn't matter, these people are not worth the boss's troubles. Xiaoan quickly called up the calcite image of the glass-type jade and projected it on the holographic screen. When he saw the familiar figure in the crowd, he couldn't help being stunned. Ah, isn't this the newcomer last time? It's too coincidental. Last time Zhao Gui's incident impressed Xiaoan, and he recognized Bai Jing at once. It was him. Gu Yuanshao passed the name Bai Jing in his throat, and his eyes flickered. Bring him here immediately. Yes, Master Gu. Xiaoan bowed and stepped back, instructing his subordinates to locate them through the backstage of the light brain, and quickly found the other party. When he brought 2 men in black uniforms to Bai Jing, the latter was almost unable to support him, but his strong willpower kept him calm on the surface. Xiaoan intuited that something was wrong with him, but the other party showed a cold attitude of refusing to be thousands of miles away, so he could only do business. Bai Jing, Master Gu is waiting for you on the 2nd floor. Seeing that the other party has been indifferent, he winked at the 2 people beside him. The 2 tall subordinates knew each other, and one grabbed Bai Jing's arm and prepared to take it to the 2nd floor forcibly. Although his body was so uncomfortable that he was about to collapse, Bai Jing still ducked to the side like a conditioned reflex and then grabbed one's wrist and slammed it backwards. Fortunately, he has no strength now. Otherwise, this man's arm will definitely be abolished. A look of surprise flashed across Xiaoan's eyes. He didn't expect this skinny-looking boy to have such a strong strength and such a quick response. We have no ill intentions, but if you don't cooperate, you can only apologize. Joan stepped forward abruptly, grabbed Bai Jing's left shoulder like electricity, locked his left arm back, and then clasped the opponent's right shoulder, doing the same. Bai Jing's hands were clasped behind him, and the man holding him was so powerful that he couldn't break free in his weak state, so he could only let them take them to the private room on the 2nd floor. Young Master Gu, Bai Jing has been brought here, Xiaoan said respectfully, letting go of Bai Jing's hand and pushing him forward. Bai Jingquan persisted until now with unimaginable willpower. In fact, he was in a semi-conscious state. Joan's letting go was like a signal, and he finally couldn't hold back and fell forward. What are you doing? Joan's face changed. Unexpectedly, when this thin young man saw young Master Gu, he would try to hug him like those mad bees and butterflies. You must know that young Master Gu hates this the most. However, what surprised him even more was that young Master Gu did not kick the person away as usual, but instead carefully caught him and let him lie down in his arms. The boy in his arms closed his eyes. The cold sweat on his forehead wet the lenses and the black hair on his forehead, exuding high heat all over his body. Gu Yuanchao frowned and took off his glasses, stunned for a moment when he saw the other party's beautiful and delicate eyebrows, and returned to normal in an instant. He is very ill. I will take him to Fu Yan's place. After Gu Yuanchao finished speaking, he gently picked up Bai Jing, kicked open the back door of the box, and disappeared in place in the hover car. There is a situation. Joan touched his chin and pondered. This is the first time the boss has taken the initiative to contact others, let alone. Although the teenager was sick, the boss never showed any sympathy, and someone else would definitely be too lazy to care about his life or death. TSK, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have imagined that Gu Xiao, who usually speaks his mind and doesn't like being touched by others, would be careful to hold him in his arms. Could it be that the eldest, who has been single for 26 years, is finally about to wake up? When Bai Jing woke up again, he found himself lying in a closed oval container. As soon as he moved, the upper part of the container opened automatically, and the eyes were pure white. A long-haired man with golden glasses came over and greeted him with a smile. "Little beauty, are you awake?" Bai Jing touched the bridge of his nose, and the black frame was no longer there. He sat up from the container and looked around. "This is where?" His voice was a little hoarse because he didn't speak for a long time. The long-haired man handed him a glass of water at the right time, and Bai Jing thanked him and drank it. The warm water poured into his throat, and he felt better. "This is my private clinic. My name is Fu Yin, and I am a senior therapist. You have been lying in the medical cabin for a day. If young Master Gu hadn't brought you here in time, you might have died due to genetic decay." Fu Yin pushed his glasses and said seriously, "Gene decay." Bai Jing's pupils shrank, thinking of his weak state before he fell into a coma. He knew there was something wrong with his body, but he never thought of coming to the clinic. If he is found to be genetically different from the Aborigines, he will definitely be used for endless experiments. Don't worry, although the probability of gene decay is small, it is not non-existent and can be treated. Seeing that the boy suddenly became defensive and his beautiful brown eyes showed hostility, Fu Yin couldn't help softening his tone. The other party is like a beautiful cat with high vigilance. People can't help but want to sneak a hand, but be careful of being hurt by sharp claws. You mean there are others with the same symptoms as me? Bai Jing breathed a sigh of relief, and the guard in his eyes dissipated a little, as long as no one found out that he was not an aboriginal. That's right. Genetic decay is caused by cosmic radiation, and it was an extremely common symptom in the first place. But in the hundreds of years after immigration, imperial researchers have been working on genetic modification, and citizens themselves are constantly evolving. So far, 95% of citizens have been able to resist radiation, but there are still 5% people will not be able to adapt, resulting in genetic decay. Now the Empire has developed special-grade gene fluid for this group of people, but the cost is relatively high. You need 5 million star coins, and judging from your current level of genetic decay. Thinking of the frugal clothes and thin body of the young man, Fu Yin said unbearably, "At least 10. Bai Jing lowered his eyes slightly. 10 special-grade gene fluids cost 50 million star coins. He only has less than 13 million star coins now, and he doesn't know what year and month he will have to collect. But for him, being able to come to this interstellar era without zombies is a great gift, and he will try his best to survive." Fu Yin saw the boy lowered his head, revealing fluffy and soft hair with some curls, and there were a few cute dull hairs on it. He couldn't help but want to touch it comfortingly, but heard a bang. Gu Yuanchao kicked open the half-closed door of the private clinic. His stature is unusually tall, and his tall and straight black military uniform complements his broad shoulders and long legs, exuding an air that cannot be ignored. He pushed Fu Yin away with one hand and sat on the swivel chair next to Bai Jing. With nowhere to rest his long legs, he stretched out sideways. "Young Master Gu, you came in to startle me. Can you knock on the door next time?" Fu Yin stabilized his body and held up the golden glasses on the bridge of his nose with a helpless tone. Gu Yuanchao squinted his eyes and looked at the other party. "What were you doing just now?" Normally, he wouldn't be so impulsive. Fu Yin pushed up his glasses and smiled. Of course, he's helping little beauty check her body. Gu Yuanchao gave Fu Yin a warning look. "Stay away from him." Fu Yin. Don't let me touch my head." Gu Yuanchao turned around, his dark eyes fixed on Bai Jing. He reached out to touch Bai Jing's forehead, but was swiftly avoided by the latter. Gu Yuanchao withdrew his hand calmly, without any embarrassment on his face. Young Master Gu, thank you for saving me. Bai Jing raised his head and looked at Gu Yuanchao with his misty brown eyes. His long eyelashes trembled slightly, and his beautiful eyes seemed to contain a clear spring, which made people unconsciously fall into it. What's the cost of the treatment? I'll transfer it to you right away. If you need me to do anything, please feel free to tell me. I do need you somewhere. Gu Yuanchao got up. His tall body was close to Bai Jing, and his slender arms were propped on one side of the medical cabin, as if he was wrapping him in his arms. Looking at Bai Jing's vigilant eyes, the corners of his lips curled slightly, and he turned his head to look at Fu Yin behind him. You go out first. Okay, then I won't disturb the rendezvous between young Master Gu and the little beauty. Fu Yin smiled indifferently, and after leaving, he gently lifted the twisted door up and closed it with great effort. Bai Jing, 18 years old, just registered the information of Guangnao 10 days ago, so he made a bet at the stone gambling shop to win. As a newcomer, he solved the glass jadeite for the first time betting stone. Gu Yuanchao looked at Bai Jing meaningfully. Your luck seems to be very good? Thank you. I also feel very lucky, Bai Jing said calmly, with no flaws in his delicate face. Gu Yuanchao carefully observed his expression, and after a while he said, just because of your luck, I want to hire you as Gu's exclusive stone gambler. He straightened up and passed the long-drawn employment agreement to the other party with his brain. After Bai Jing received it, he checked it word by word along the light screen. The agreement is only 2 pages, with the term of the agreement and liquidated damages marked at the top at the beginning and written in large bold font. The term of this agreement is 5 years. If any party unilaterally proposes to terminate the contract within 5 years, the other party shall compensate the other party with 10 billion stars for liquidated damages. 10 billion? Bai Jing thought to himself that he would never be able to afford such a high liquidated damages. He continued to look down, followed by the obligations of the Gu family's exclusive stone gambler. 1. After Party B becomes an official stone gambler, it shall participate in no less than 4 stone gambling battles every month, and participate in interstellar stone gambling battles on behalf of the Gu family when necessary. 2. For all high-quality jadeite issued by Party B, Gu has the right of first refusal. 3. For the newly developed wool material in Gu's mine, Party B shall assist the senior stone gambler to divide the wool material. Bai Jing watched one by one, and then there were the various treatments that the Gu family provided him, including the annual salary of 5 million stars, various other benefits, and the cost of treating his gene decay. Bai Jing raised his head to look at Gu Yuanchao, but met the deep gaze of the other party. He turned his head slightly to avoid the aggressive gaze. Young Master Gu, I accept all other terms. It's just that Gu should not be responsible for the cost of treating my personal genetic decay. The money Gu family can afford. Gu Yuanchao was completely unmoved. Since there is no problem, you can sign? His slender fingers pointed at the signature. Bai Jing made no concessions in this regard, with a rare insistence in his tone. I will transfer you 12 million star coins first, and I will pay back the remaining 38 million star coins as soon as possible. The two were deadlocked for a while, and a hint of helplessness flashed in Gu Yuanchao's eyes. As you wish. If Joan was here, he would be stunned. Gu Shao has always said no one, and no one refuted the decision he made. Now he has just compromised like this? The opinions finally reached an agreement. Bai Jing transferred the 12 million star coins in the account to the other party, and then signed his name on the second party of the agreement. After Gu Yuanchao signed the agreement, he uploaded it to Gu's headquarters and set the authority to top secret, which no one could open except himself. Seeing that Bai Jing's face was still pale, he hurriedly connected with Fu Yin. Not long after, there was a crisp knock on the door, and Fu Yin entered the room with a tray. On the tray were 10 sticks of golden liquid, glowing with a fine stream of light. The date is over? Fu Yin laughed, seeing that the two of them didn't react and were not embarrassed. He smiled and said to Bai Jing, this is the 10 special grade gene liquid specially prepared for you by young Master Gu. Drink it now. Thank you. Bai Jing thanked Gu Yuanchao again and took 10 doses of gene fluid. The rich energy poured into his limbs and bones, constantly repairing the genes that decayed due to cosmic radiation, and the weakened body suddenly gained strength, even better than before. The energy in the gene fluid was constantly repairing his body, and Bai Jing felt that his powers seemed to be a step further than before, and his overall qualities such as physical fitness and memory had been significantly improved. Now, he can easily sense the strength of Gu Yuanchao's body. The active response in the opponent's body has reached the extreme. Every muscle and every part of his body is full of strength and explosive power. It is the most perfect body he has ever seen. Is this the body of 3S? Simply perfect. Bai Jing admired in his heart. The efficacy of the special-grade gene fluid gradually came into play, and Bai Jing felt that his consciousness was getting deeper and deeper, and he finally fell asleep in the medical cabin.